That's what I'm talking about. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Arvanauts. Welcome all to a Tuesday stream, and it is indeed Brad Face. So we've got the new guy, heroic pick of Brad Bollier. That's right. And actually the chorus doing its best to try to pronounce his last name the best way that we can. But yes, that is the updated video. Thank you to Chrono Wolf for managing the the version of the updated window, and also reflecting the fact that Cubicle 7 is no longer sponsoring this campaign because Cubicle 7 doesn't publish the game anymore. And so I'm working on what the next effect of that will be down the line. But anyway, yes, so thank you so much to getting the new video finally in place. And welcome to everybody to a Tuesday stream. It is day 7 of Adventures in Middle-earth, Erebor Adventures, the Silver Needle with the full crew. And I hope everyone is doing well and looking forward to our stream today. Before we get started, just a couple of reminders about ways to support the channel. If you haven't done so already, please follow the channel. Please check out our YouTube with !ArvTube, where you can see past broadcasts of this and other streams. !ArvCord is the Discord channel where you can hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. The Twitter is !ArvTweets, where I will always tweet about the stream one way or the other. And you can find all of this on my website for this channel, arvaneleron.com. On the financial side, !ArvShop will get you material of Adventures in Middle-earth and also material of the D&D with Infinity and Beyond crew, currently playing Curse of Strahd. And soon we're going to have Esper Genesis stuff up there as well. That's !ArvShop. !ArvTrayon is the thing you see right there. 22 patrons, $2.25 per month. Again, that really is the financial backbone of the channel and makes it possible for us to do things like commission fixes to videos and new videos and stuff like that. And we have more things that we want to do as long as the support is there to do it. So any support that people can give will help not only the channel reach new goals, but also help you individually. You can get one of my band's new albums, or 3 albums, I should say. You can get a professional critique of your writing. You can get inspirations to help the players. You can get a character background written for you, an epic poem written about you, etc. So all those things are things available on the Patreon, so please consider jumping on board there. And also consider subbing to the channel. We are currently sitting at about 67 subs or so, and all of those people have custom sub badges and emotes they can use everywhere, and also have inspirations, depending on the tier they support at, that can help us as well. So that also makes a big difference in the financial stability of the channel. So any support people can give there is much appreciated. Last but certainly not least, publishing stuff. !Icarus for my Icarus and Jelinek graphic novels. Exclamation from Athos Arts. !Library for Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library. That is my 5e adventure sourcebook and adventure and sourcebook from Alligator Alley Entertainment. Print editions coming soon. You can get that link is right going to bring you over to the Drive-Thru RPG link where you can get a copy of the digital version, which is currently a silver seller on Drive-Thru RPG. It's actually 2 T's, actually, Illness. And then we've got let's see, Icarus Library. Oh, yes. Grayshade KS for my Grayshade Kickstarter. Coming February 2nd of next year is the launch date for that. And last but certainly not least, BLM, Black Lives Matter. We have been and will continue to push this. And so anything that you can do to support this would be helpful. And I've said many times that we are going to continue to promote this issue as long as it's necessary, which means it's going to be a long time. So BLM, that is a link to educational resources. That is a link to places where you can find out details about political advocacy, police reform, and things of that nature. And also, of course, places you can donate and support resources as well. And I think the thing you're looking for here is that, I thought we had an Athos Arts link. I thought that I'm going to have to look for it. Anyway, in the meantime, you can look at this. That'll also get you over to Athos Arts as well. So, schedule-wise, we have got Adventures of Middle-earth, Erebor Adventures today. We will be doing this until about 3:15 p.m. or something like that. And then we will be getting ready at 4 p.m. for D&D with GOG over at the GOG Comms Twitch channel. Storm King's Thunder as we finally continue that campaign as well. And I should say at the very end of our session today, also, we're going to be making our final vote for the Patreon-fueled Chat Chosen Game of the Month, which is coming next week. That right now, as I take a look here, Currently, Spiritfarer has got a 6-3 to 1 vote lead over Ghostbusters Remastered and Batman the Telltale series, respectively. So you should get your votes in now because that vote is going to be closing down at the end of the day today. So whatever you want me to play for next week, now is your time to get in that vote because we're going to be closing it down after today. Then tomorrow we've got Community D&D with the Shadow Crew. Then Thursday we are off. Then Friday we have got Esper Genesis coming at you. And then Saturday we have the D&D with Infinity and Beyond Curse of Strahd, as that campaign is rapidly heading towards its conclusion one way or the other. And so it's going to be awesome. It looks like there's a good chance we're actually going to have the last session for that on Halloween night, which is going to be pretty wild, but depends on how things go over the next couple of sessions. But it looks like there's a good shot at that, so that would be pretty sweet. So anyway, so that's the deal with that. It is good to see all of you. I hope everyone is doing well and looking forward to the session today. And I am now going to unmute myself and let them know that we're ready to go. And then I'm going to unmute them. And then I'm going to head over to reveal the amazing crew, which is here and prepared for what looks to be a lively session with everyone, the party completely split and spread out and isolated in various spots in Dale. I don't see what could possibly go wrong. No, it's going to be good times. And I am very excited to have all of them with me, starting with the gentleman right below me, who, as we were talking about, we were just talking about the world, the life, the world in general right now, and 2020 and all that kind of good stuff. And I guess Trent, I'm just curious how you're hanging in there, how you holding up, sir, and who are you playing?
There's a concept known as someone's breaking point, and I think I finally hit mine, because as we were trying to tell Boutrochet, oh no, it's not French. Damn it, what's your name? Towie.
I was like, I can't help you. I have no idea who you're referring to.
Yeah. Anytime I see, never mind. Suffice it, just we were trying to explain ennui and malaise and just an overall feeling of, and I'm squarely in between this. And there's another word that I was talking to my housemate about yesterday that also fits with ennui, and one is a state and one is a something. I don't remember what he said, because I've reached a point where I don't care about anything anymore. So still, since I didn't get to shill, here's that thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the shilling.
Yeah, it's 10 shillings for the, 5 shillings for the docking at the port, and then we forget the name. I think that's how it was in the pirate movie that I can't remember the name of. Right. So I'm Trent Sparks. I'm a professional, supposedly, audiobook narrator, but I seem to have lost any and all passion for that as well. Thanks to 2 weeks worth of smoke, completely crushing whatever, not propulsion, momentum that I had. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's wonderful. Anyway, I am playing a big old dude that everybody who is not of the Shadow at least doesn't hate, because I always forget to remind Arv that one of his features is that people, his reputation precedes him, and unless they are people who work for the Shadow, they won't attack him. But I'm going to help the Queen someday.
What did you say? I totally missed that.
Reference to?
What did you just say about what? Who texts what? Where?
Which what? One of his hand. I think it's in Hands of a Healer. One of his traits is that people who are not of the Shadow will not just out and out attack him.
I swear to God, I had a brain fart for a minute, and I thought I heard was Arv has this reputation that precedes him, and it was something about healing. I'm like, what are we? I'm like, what are we talking about? I've lost my mind.
Your writing makes me feel good. Sure, go with it.
Fine, your writing heals me. All right, Arv. Okay, great. That's great. I am excited to see what we get from Tani today as Tani heads off to deal with the Queen. We were joking that we're going to start with Bolo, then we're going to go. Queen. We're going to start with Bolo, and then we're going to deal with Inga and the river. And we were joking that and then we'll cut back to Tani, who'll be at the bed of the dead Queen, who would have lived if I'd cut to him first. But that's the way that all works. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. But I'm looking forward to that. I am also looking forward to seeing how Bolo handles things, played, of course, by the inimitable Brad Bollier, who has finally been added to the introduction video. I'm very excited.
That is a fantastic headshot too, by the way.
Yeah, you've used that for a long time, I
Really
think.
good.
But anyway, yeah. So finally, we have everything updated and it's official. Brad's now, he can't cut out now because now there's a video. So now there's video evidence. Brad, how you doing? How's life in the universe with you and who you playing?
It's good. I'm in between projects at the moment. For those who don't know, I'm a largely an epic fantasy writer, and I'm working on some new ideas and stuff. And it's always, for me anyway, it's a very strange time. Like, I'm so used to being in either writing mode or editing mode.
I was gonna say, like, that. When does that happen? You in between projects? Like, that's
yeah, and and I tend to fill that time with like the brainstorming phases, but those always feel like I'm so eager just to get back to work and stuff, even though that is work. It's a necessary part of the writing process. So I'm very antsy at the moment to get back to things, but I'm also excited to see what's in store for Bolo here.
Yes, Bolo Took, who has recently joined the party and has got an encounter with apparently a thief to deal with, as we're about to talk about during the exploration of exploration of Broken Stone. Well, I mean, listen, there was enough referencing to it at the time that Bolo can put two and together. We will see how Bolo's new friend manages things. We'll see how that goes. Always a pleasure to have Brad with us. Also always a pleasure to have Terry with us. And I gather that everything is now functional. Headset's good. All good. Terry,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah,
okay.
The plug wasn't all the way in.
Okay.
So
it all works. So hi Terry, how are you? How's life and the universe and who are you playing?
Everything is good. I am in the Netherlands right now. Not at my usual spot. It's the same table, just at the other end of it. As people pointed out, like, where are you? I don't recognize this.
It looked a little bit like your place, actually, because of the window. And I was like, are you moving? Like, are you also moving?
No, everything is dandy. I'm playing Inge, daughter of Ida. She is a dwarf of the Erebor. And she has a trusty pony sidekick named Glenleman. And for today, she is gonna have forgotten everything because I forgot my notes at home.
All right, that sounds good. So you agreed to become part of a dwarf cover band, and that's how that all.
Wait, is it a band consisting of dwarfs or a band that covers a band named Dwarfs?
No, it's all dwarf. It should be the latter. No, it's all dwarves, and they cover halfling song. I don't know. I was trying to think of something that would, but none of that's bad for you because you love hobbits, so that doesn't work. So I'd have to think of something that would actually be annoying to you. But until then, it is great to have you with us as always, Terry, and it's also great to have Amal with us. And Amal, who is not quite moved. I know you announced last time they were going to be moved, so not quite moved. But we were just chatting while the rest of the call fell asleep. We were just talking shop about teaching, and we're like, and then this cool thing about Tolkien, and we could pair this book with this book and this author and this author. And everyone's like, so I just want to say that I found our green room convo very fascinating, Amal, and I know you did too. But how are you doing? How's life with you, and who are you playing today?
Things are okay. So my new moving date is October 2nd. So hopefully, knocking on wood, by next session I will in fact be moved. So, get your fill of this space. I am hoping that next time I will still be, joining you from a place with books and a dagger in the background. But we shall see. Other than that, term has started, so things are very, very busy, and lots of still constant adjustment to the teaching online stuff, but very glad to be doing that. We also just got word that the winter term starting in January will also be all online, which is exactly as I hoped.
Yep.
So that's good. But so things are okay. I think hopefully I have been very heartsick for all of my friends on the West Coast with all of the smoke. I can't even fathom how horrifying that situation is, and not to be like a walking cliche, but like if anyone wants to have information or advice on moving to Canada, I am here to provide it. So
Just
yeah.
hang on to that until about November 4th, okay?
Yeah. I mean, like we have a lot of problems of our own. You will not be coming to any kind of paradise.
You have no idea the difference between your not paradise and our not paradise. I'm just gonna tell you that right now.
I have an inkling. But yeah. So that said, I what else? What was I? What is it? Oh yeah, I'm playing a character. That's what I'm doing here. I'm playing the River, who is a woodsman of Rosgobel, and she is a fighty bard, a warden who is adept with axes and harp and voice as well. And she travels with her company and her faithful hound of Mirkwood named Stone. Yeah.
Who is faithful and awesome, and of course
I
Inga
heard that,
travels with the full plot armored, so she thinks, Lillimon.
I keep them here on my desk for a reason.
Thank you. I wrote half
I
that
was
book.
like,
The book is also now in paperback.
oh hey now
with,
in paperback.
yeah,
Wow.
Sexy little step back cover and stuff. I also actually hilariously, I received a box of 20 more hardcovers of the book because George R.R. Martin has a bookstore in where is it? New Mexico, somewhere. I can't remember where exactly he is there, but he has a bookstore whose whole gimmick is that it only stocks books that are signed by the authors. And this is a co-written book, but he requested a bunch of them in the wake of it winning the Hugo Awards. So,
Ooh, nice.
so the Canadian publisher has sent me 20 hardbacks to sign, which I will then send on to Max for him to sign.
Right.
And then Max will send them on to Germ for the bookstore. That's what it is in my head. It's like George or Germ. But yeah, it was a nice surprise. It was just like, what a box of, oh yeah, this thing that I have to do. So that's nice. But yeah.
That's the name of my next half-troll character.
Who's also a secretly frustrated writer. Like, just like, why? He's like, I just have this urge. I don't know. It reminds me of something. So
just quickly on the subject of Grim, did you guys know this is public knowledge as read in Locus magazine? That he has bought a branch of a railway.
No.
There's like a railway branch near him that he has purchased and is going to like turn into some project that is vaguely SFy. So I don't know.
Wow.
Stand by for the
like a museum-y type thing.
I don't actually know. I presume it's going to be like a touristy thing.
Right.
Either that or I would have to look at the Locus announcement in it again to see if there was more information about it. But
I feel like
that,
Locus. It's good.
near Milwaukee, I think Chicago was the same way. It was not designed, but it grew in a sort of a spoke-like fashion. And so when rails came, they all came. They brought workers in, from the suburbs to Milwaukee and back out. And there's very few of those rail lines left, but there's a couple, and one was turned into a museum where you could look at all the different railway things and also take a ride on one of the original tracks, which was super duper bumpy and annoying.
Oh wow, yeah.
Beyond, but interesting all the same.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. I happen to love trains. There's my financial aspiration is to get to the point where I can be like, I'm just gonna buy a railway. I just,
Right.
Can you open the petty cash drawer and see what we've got? Oh, that sounds good. Can you just buy a railway with that?
Shake out the change,
It's just like, I'm like, man, I don't know.
For a few $100 bills in the couch cushions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just like living right. Oh man. Anyway, no, it's interesting. I did not know that, but it is a pleasure to have Amel with us. It is a pleasure to have the entire crew with us. And with no further ado, let us talk a little bit about what happened in our last time, in our last session. Let me just fire up the soundscapes at the little medieval town, little river town. There we go. Okay. In our last session, the party had returned, the company has returned to Dale in search of the mysterious bandit known as Longo. They did not know a lot about this character except basically just a name, but they had been sent out looking for this Longo by several people who had given them advice and suggestions about people they thought they had seen who were responsible behind some of the recent attacks upon the good people of Dale, including an attack which happened and was actually partially witnessed by the party during a scuffle with some bandits at the front gate of Dale, where Kelda, the old seamstress, was knocked down, and basically there was a mugging, apparently, which the party managed to partially break up. And so the town guard and several of the other citizens had asked the party to intervene and to send them off to actually find this Longo and bring him to justice. And so the party went out to do that, except when the party actually got to where Longo theoretically was, following a few trail/breadcrumbs that had been placed there, the party found themselves instead at the center of an ambush. And although it was not easy, I mean, this is the company, you all know. I mean, this is this group, right? So they were able to defeat that ambush and realized fairly quickly thereafter that they must have been led astray for some reason and decided that they needed to head back in the opposite direction post-haste. And they did so after a rather amusing encounter, I would say, in Erebor, in Laketown and Esgaroth with the owner of a certain stable who Tani managed to rearrange the front door of, and several other things like that. The party arrived in the city of Dale and promptly did what every party I recommend as a DM GM should always do, and that is they split up. And they went in different directions. No, I actually, all jokes aside about the meme, there are times when splitting up is enormously fun and actually makes a lot of sense. And so it made sense for them to do that in this case. Tani went to the guard house, basically one of the local barracks, to talk with some of the guards about what they knew, and was eventually told, after some information that he gathered, speaking to Cardis, the captain of the guard in Dale, that the person he should be going to speak to really is Captain Elston, who Tani, of course, has encountered before, and speak to him and hopefully King Bard about what's going on within Dale, and hopefully gather some information from the official side of things. Tani promptly went off in that direction, while simultaneously...
Saying, I'd like to speak to your manager. And...
Yes, exactly, right up the chain. While simultaneously, Bolo and Inga and the River were heading off in their own directions. Bolo decided that he was going to go to Brokenstone to try to do a little bit of sneaky surveillance gathering, I guess you might say, about where bandits might be found in Dale and whether you could find any information about these lowlifes. And in traveling through the Brokenstone, he actually encountered and broke up an encounter between some of these cutthroats and ne'er-do-wells, and ended up rescuing, or helping rescue, a thief who called herself Brindle. And we're going to begin with that in just a few moments, with the end of that little encounter that they had. While this is all happening, Inga and the River are heading to find Kelda to check in on her, basically, because what the party discovered is while they had been gone, Kelda's shop had been broken into and ransacked. And so the party also now maybe believes that they were basically gotten out of the area, and while the cat was away, the mice decided that they would play. And so now the party, in great anger and furious vengeance, maybe not so much, but they're a little bit perturbed and annoyed that this happened to them, has decided to go deal with this problem. And so as we pick up the adventure, I want to start out with Bolo and with Brindle. Brindle, Bolo, the way that Bolo helped Brindle, this was behind this is the backyard of this inn, and which was called the Honest Thief, I believe. And in the back of this inn, there was a light that was shining out of the back window, or shining out of the back door, onto these three figures. One of them, a woman, cloaked, with a scar running down her face, and just sort of like fairly reasonably young, actually, just on her back, looking up at these two imposing other ne'er-do-well cut-purse types, one of whom was talking about how he was tired of her stealing his stuff and getting into his business, and the time had come for her to leave Dale permanently, hint, hint, at which point Bolo came in and basically said, "Oh, Brindle, you're my friend, you need to come home with me right now," and basically disrupted all of that. And through the power of Bolo's distraction, which Bolo has proven to be very able at, through the power of this distraction, made it so that Brindle was able to escape her momentary disadvantage, kill this character Franks, who is now on the ground lying dead, and tell the other guy above her to basically get the hell out of here or she'd know what. He swore vengeance, but she kicked him out, basically kicked him to the curb, somewhat literally. He got up and ran away, and that leaves us with, behind the honest thief, Bolo looking at Brindle. And the last thing that Brindle had said to him was, "All right, my name is Brindle. You might as well tell me the name you're using for yours." And I hand things back over now to Bolo.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna use my real name. My name is Bolo, and I'll be honest. I came here with a purpose. I'm a little bit down on my luck, but when I saw you in trouble, I felt I had to do something.
Well, I appreciate it, but we're all a little bit down on our luck here, love. If you're spending any time in Brokenstone, you're not going to find many people who are on the upswing. What exactly makes you down?
Well, I've had a bad run of luck since leaving the Shire. I've come across country looking for fortune, maybe a bit of fame if it can be found. But I found none of those things. Down to my last few pennies. And I heard word of a fellow hobbit. His name is Longo, and I heard he might need of a few extra hands.
Make an insight check for me, please.
Okay.
Bolo. He just needed advice. Yes, Aaron. They just needed advice. Don't go swimming 15 minutes after you've eaten. Okay. So with that big 2, her face is just a mask. Suddenly, just a closed door. You have no idea. So when you're talking about when you mention the name of Longo, she kind of, her eyes narrow a little bit, and she says, "Longo. I don't know if you really want to be dealing with him, love. You're going to find yourself in some trouble if you start running with his types."
Well, I can be the judge of that. I can take care of myself. And he's a fellow hobbit. I think I'll have an in with him.
He's a fellow hobbit. And she kind of looks you over up and down, and she kind of like walks around you a little bit, kind of, assessing. And she says, "How long you been doing this kind of thing? I mean, trying to make a name for yourself, as you say. How long you been doing that?"
A long, long time. A couple of months now.
And she nods slowly, and she says, "A couple of months." She says, "I think you're telling me the truth, actually, Bolo. It sounds about right." And she comes around to the front again, and she says, "I think, what made you decide you were going to interfere just now? I mean, you're walking past the alley, you hear 2 people yelling at another person. That happens all the time in Brokenstone. Wherever you're from, you probably happened even to you. Why would you bother to come in and interfere with something that didn't have anything to do with you?"
Well, that may all be true, but where I come from, you help people that are in need. And you seem like you needed a little bit of help.
She kind of shakes her head slowly. My experience, love, need is something that varies depending on the coin." And she sort of looks and says, "Well, I can't bring you to Longo, but if you want, I can probably bring you to a group of others. They might be of help to you, perhaps."
All right, what sort of people are they?
She says, "Well, they're kind of people that know how to gather information, you might say. Oh, and gather also resources to make it easier to gather information, perhaps." And she stares at you.
I make a show of like considering, but I sort of make it look like I'm acting like I'm considering, and
Right.
then I eagerly say, not eagerly, but all right. That would be most helpful. Thank you.
And she sort of looks at you and she says, either you're playing a real long con that I haven't figured out yet, or you're exactly what you say you are. So, and she goes, I can't do it. Okay, imagine that I could whistle correctly, okay? I can actually
Piercing
whistle
whistle.
fine. I just can't do one of those,
Insert piercing
you know?
whistle.
Right. So she does one of these things, and Bolo, actually make a perception check for me, Bolo, but you can do this at advantage, actually.
Double ones.
I'm sorry, what?
I said double ones.
Yeah, double ones. Okay, so we got that 12. Yes, that's enough. You are suddenly acutely aware, Bolo, that you are not alone with Brindle here in this backyard. And as you sort of look around, you see glittering in the because I think this is early morning, I think is what we had set this to be, right? I think is what this was.
Yeah.
So in the gathering dawn, or the gathering light, I guess, the gradually brightening dawn, you can see cloaked figures, several of them on the rooftops above you. And there are about maybe 3 or 4 of them placed, and you can see they're all looking down at you. Their faces are hidden within the cloaks, but you can see their eyes glittering. And she says, "You know, it's a good thing that there's someone else coming around here. Much use I would have had from you lads. Get down here." And they all sort of jump down. As they jump down, Bolo, you notice that they hit the ground, and they all land very sort of like, almost like cats, you know, very lithely and as if they're used to doing this sort of thing.
Light
And
on their feet.
yes, and very quietly. And they all rise and they come over, and Brindle looks at them and kind of shakes her head, and she says, "Where's the rest?" And one says, "You told them to wait in the alley down there, Brindle, so we did. You said no one's to move from there." And she says, "Until I gave the signal, I said, and I gave it 3 times. He says, "Well, it's not my doing. You can't blame." She's like, never mind. We'll deal with this later on. Right now we've got a new friend." And she points you out, and the person that was talking to her first, he's now close enough that you can see within his hood, looks to be like a medium height man of some kind, dark beard, sort of a goatee, stubble on the chin, kind of this raggedy brown hair over these hard eyes that stare at you. And he says, "New friend? Why, 'cause he got you out of a problem? What if he's working for them, and this is a way to get to all of us?" And she says, "Oh, that's a good thought. I don't know why, you idiot." And she, like, hits him, like, basically, like, just pushes him away, and he staggers back a step, and he says, "You got no call to be doing that, Brindle." And she says, "I've got called to deal with people who are being stupid in my presence." And the others just kind of, you hear a couple of chuckles coming from the other people in the hoods. And she says, "All right now. You get this one here. His name's Bolo. I don't know whether to keep that name, but at least that's what it is for now. And you're going to bring him to downwind there." And they sort of nod and say, "All right, what about you?" "I'm going to be after you in just a moment. First, I've got to clean up." And she looks down at the body that's still lying on the ground. And she says to you, "All right, you go here with my friends of mine. I'm going to be along in just a minute. And then we'll talk a little bit about, what we know around here. I may have use of someone like you. Although, I don't much know if I want someone who's basing everything on need and help. But maybe we can change your definitions for you, And she smiles, gives you kind of this wry, crooked smile, and then nods at you, and she says, "All right, I'll be along shortly. Don't worry, they're not taking you anywhere to do something bad to you. I would have killed you myself otherwise." And she turns around and like bends down to the body as if she's going to attend to that.
Okay.
So they are prepared to lead you somewhere if you're going to go with them.
Yeah. As she turns, I'm just gonna take a coin, just copper coin or something, and just hold it behind my back. You know, as she was talking to the other guy, I'm gonna flick it into a corner so it makes a sound sort of away from us.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they turn to look at the sound, I'm going to use my ability to hide and just get out of that immediate area.
Okay.
I want to test them a little bit and see what they do.
Okay. Let's see. I want to go back and double check actually on the hiding versus checks. Hello, D underscore. And also hi Trish if I hadn't said hi before. Okay. No, not that. A burglar he is, or will be when the time comes. You can say expert treasure hunter if you like. Alright. Okay. So, let's see. We are... Wait, are we doing... This is your class-based?
Yeah, the art of disappearing virtue.
Right.
The racial-based hobbits.
Oh, it is racial-based, okay. Okay. Or the cultures, I guess. Culturally based. Right.
I pasted it into chat.
Yeah, that's better than my searching for the virtue. Just to make sure that I don't need about that. Unseated the eyes. Okay, right. I wanted to make sure about that. That last paragraph is what I was looking for. Okay.
Okay.
So, hold on a second.
I assume there's like junk, back in this alley or something, or even a doorway shadowed that I could just sneak into.
Yes, I would say there are some barrels there, especially lined around the outside of this back little yard area, courtyard that you could go to. And so you do this, and there's as she turns, and there's a moment's kind of like exclamation, and when, oh, Brindle, oh, he's gone, and she kind of. So she turns her head over her shoulder to kind of look back, and she nods and she says,
"As they're, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, as they're kind of looking, I just go and just draw their attention to me.
And then they kind of and then they see you behind the barrel and, all right, don't try anything foolish. One of them says, sounding a little, and she says,
"Oh no."
Yeah, and she, looking over her shoulder, says, I don't know. I'd say the one who was foolish is the one who didn't find him in the first place. And she leans down and she starts working with the body again. And they learn the one who was the one who originally kind of gave you the hard-eyed glare is like, I don't need anything smart from you. You understand?
Oh, nothing smart. But there's skills I have that Longo or you could use, and it's more the need that I have. There's want in me too. So let's see what you're all about.
And he nods slowly and he says, all right, I suppose we'll see. You come with us, and if you don't mind doing more tests, I'd appreciate it. I've had a long day, the lads and me.
All right. Let's move along.
You notice also, by the way, that there are about 3 or 4 of these figures, cloaked figures around you, but you don't see any hobbit sized ones among them, nor dwarf sized ones, but you do see one that looks like it is also female and may possibly have some kind of elvish blood, thinner and leaner, and there's a certain gracefulness to the features that seems slightly out of place with some of these other people that you've seen here so far. But it's definitely, other than that, a crew of different, there's 3 or 4 of them, 2 men, 2 women, and they seem to have different kind of different sort of ages also, not all young, and definitely not the prettiest bunch of people that you've ever seen in general, but they're all different, and so they kind of head off in that direction. And just as you're leaving the courtyard, Brindle says, not looking back at you, oh, and when you get him back down there, make sure you let him know what's involved, and you can give him one of the cloaks. And they stop, and the guy, your friend, looks back at her and says, Brindle, we don't have many of them as it is. And she says, yep, and now we have one fewer one. If I wanted explanations about our inventory, I'd ask you, Get on with it. And he kind of gets in her head, stupid, and like starts muttering to himself. All right, come on. And heads off into the street with you surrounded. And as your shadow kind of melts into the alleyway, you notice that as you're being brought through things, that the alleys you're going into are progressively smaller and narrower and more shadowier. And we will find out the impact of that in a little bit. Meanwhile, while all that is happening, we have Inga and the River, who have been heading to try to find Kelda's establishment, because this is originally the person that was under attack and where supposedly the place had been ransacked. So you make your way up to where you're told this place exists, which is supposedly in the Old Quarter. And I want to make sure that I pull out the map there so we can have the Old Quarter. Yes, I don't need King Bard. Thank you. There we go. Sorry, I want to make sure that I get the right description so I'm not mispronouncing something I'm supposed to. There we go. So the Old Quarter that you're going into is the eastern part of the city, and it's right up here for people in chat. The eastern part of the city is referred to as the Old Quarter because long time ago this was the heart of Dale before the coming of Smaug. And the sort of vast tracts of stone houses and shops and so on that once made up Dale were reduced to piles of shattered masonry and melted rock by the dragon. Most of those sort of shattered areas, destroyed areas, a lot of them are in Brokenstone, which is to the south of where you are. That's where, Bolo has been plying his craft of late. But you two are going to an area which is now beginning to be rebuilt. There is a lot of old stonework that is melded with the new. I guess I might think of it as like if you could imagine kind of like an old European city like Salzburg or something like that. But if you could imagine that melded with more modern architecture in these places that were broken down and destroyed, this area has been done fairly well. There was definitely, Inga, as you walk along, some dwarven craftsmanship here. Because listen, humans do their best, right? But it takes dwarves to make things really blend in when it comes to this stuff. And so you can see that is the case. But you also notice that although this neighborhood has especially somewhat troubled reputation, this particular area of the neighborhood, although it's perhaps not as, the incomes aren't as high or whatever, a lot of sort of, mercantile and workmen and so forth live here, but there is this sense that this is an up-and-coming area, perhaps, and that there are, again, a lot of well-tended places and people who seem to care about living here, even though it, was broken down not that many years ago. When you arrive at the shop in the Old Quarter, or what you were told was Kelda's old shop, you are a little troubled though, because you find that it is closed. Its heavy wooden shutters on the outside have been cracked and snapped, and you can see that there's like a hastily tied little piece of almost rope. Maybe rope is too strong for it. Maybe even twine that's kind of holding together the handles on the outside now, as if someone had obviously broken in not long. And there is a sign above the door that is a little sign that has a worn needle and thread which is on it. But perhaps indicative of the situation, the sign right now is crooked and the door is closed, as are the windows to the outside of it.
This doesn't look good.
River nods to that and looks up at the window and tries gently but firmly knocking.
Okay, so there is this doof, 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 doof. And there's no response, but make a perception check for me, please, River. Wow.
Natural
Okay.
20. Well, okay.
Everything.
You hear the earthworms burrowing below your feet. So you do hear inside the sound of someone. It sounds like probably just one person moving or shuffling about.
River looks to Inga and says, and she's quite sad because she's really sad about this whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
Says, she's definitely in there. I doubt she wants to see people, but I think what River's gonna do is just sort of call, but in like try to kind of picture what she's not trying to be loud. She's just trying to like be heard. So she's trying to just pitch her voice towards the inside of the house as opposed to like in the street.
Okay.
And just calls. What is her title? Is she like Dame Kelda or?
No, just Kelda.
Um,
You could call her Kelda the seamstress. She's known that way too.
So River is just going to like call and say, Kelda, it's the River and Inga. We met. How long ago was it? A few days.
A few days.
We met a few days ago. Would love to speak to you if that's all right.
So there's a long pause, and then you hear the shuffling again, and then something like a couple of locks being undone on the door, and then the door swings open, and you can see, and I think I had a picture of Kelda. Yes, I did. You can see this picture. You can see Kelda, but the smile that you see on this picture is completely missing. You see that she looks tired, even for an older woman. She looks tired. There are bags under her eyes, and she's, oh, yes, I remember you. Well, come in if you like. And she kind of turns and shuffles away. The inside of the house, even as the air opens up, feels kind of musty. And this may be the first time that she's opened the door, actually, in a couple of days, possibly. So
I'm like scrolling through my inventory to be like, do we carry tea?
I've
Can
booze.
we give her some chocolates?
I've
I wish we
cheese.
That's true. Oh yeah, Inga has cheese.
you just pull out one of your roll of cheeses, like huge cheese. Have
No.
this woman. Like,
So like River will gesture for Inga to go ahead of her and just kind of sort of keep an eye on the road before heading in as well.
Hey. So, I see the diversion worked in their favor.
Yeah. So after like shutting the door and stuff behind them, River will say to Kelda, Kelda, we're so sorry. We heard that you were robbed as soon as we left town.
and as you look, you can see that. So the door actually leads to this little hallway, very little hallway, that then leads to a door on the left, which opens up into a room, really an open area that leads to this open room. So you can't quite see everything when you first get in. So you'd have to like just follow her around, if you follow what I mean. So when you close the door behind you and you follow it around and you sort of turn, go into the area that's the open room, you can see that the inside of the place is a wreck. There are what look like I can never pronounce this right. Skeins of wool.
Yeah, skeins
that
is
are
skeins,
which are on the ground and have been ripped apart. There are several cabinets that have fallen over. There's a bunch of shattered furniture and stuff like that, and the place just looks largely messed up. And she is sitting by herself in this one single, slightly crooked wooden chair, kind of with her hands folded in her lap. You can see that there's what might have been like a blanket on her knees, that she had made, obviously, some kind of embroidered blanket, but it's fallen to the ground next to her feet, and she doesn't seem to be paying much attention. And so when you come in and you're looking at this kind of a wreck, then you say what you say, and she says, well, you can see what's left of it. It's all I had.
Is she sitting
Hilda,
down?
we are gonna find who did this.
Yeah, she's sitting
We're
down.
gonna make them pay.
It doesn't matter what you do, dear. They took my needle, and they took most of my things. How do I start again now, exactly? What's even the point? I suppose it was what I needed anyway. The time was long past for me to be done with this.
What do you mean?
The world's not about the old, you know. It's not about us. It's a world for young people. What we have is... She shrugs. What does it all matter? It's all about what you can buy or sell it for. It's not about beauty. It's just about what you can make for money from it. And you can see she has, now that you're closer, the light is only, it's not very bright in here. There's just one sort of vaguely flickering lantern in one corner of the room. But now that you're closer, you can actually see that she has, you know, tears that have been like stained her cheeks, and she's just kind of looks absolutely devastated. And I should mention from a couple of days ago, when you had met her first, that, you know, she was kind of like thrown off by the whole trying to get the needle thing, but she was in a much different state. You know, old, yes, but much more vibrant than this. This just looks like someone who's completely shattered.
River basically like goes to where she's sitting and kind of sinks down to her knees in front of her and picks up the end of the blanket. You said there was like a
right,
and just kind of picks up the blanket and sort of gently tucks it over her legs, and
she doesn't even move as you do this, by the way. She's like,
and she as she's doing that, she just kind of looks at her, and she's also extremely moved and a little teary, and she takes Kilda's hands and just sort of puts them on her lap and puts her hands on top of them and says that they may have taken your needle, but a needle is just a piece of metal. It's your hands that make it something valuable and something worthwhile. And these are yours. No one can take this from you. Even if you didn't have them, even if you couldn't sew again, you have this. And she kind of like holds up her embroidered cloak, and every beautiful thing that you've made that has touched people's lives, that has swaddled babies or decorated cloaks, all of those little pieces of you are out in the world, and they don't have to be here for them to be changing that world. And they change the lives of young people and old people, and they're everywhere. Your name is everywhere. Your name is so beloved, and your art is so beloved. I know it must be a dark and terrible thing to have happen, and to have anyone come into your home and steal these things from you is horrific, and we will find them and try to bring some justice here, but we're both just so grateful that you are still here.
and she listens to this, or maybe she doesn't react at all, and then she says, you're a kind one, Yar, but you're young. You see that thing that I gave you, the embroidered there, or this blanket? All of this I made, not just with my hands, but with the needle. You know, it was given to me by my love when I was young. that needle. Whenever I used it, I feel like I was back then. My hands move just as fast. My mind can put what I want to do on a piece of cloth. I can do that. With the needle gone, what use are these hands? You can see them for yourself. And she holds it up and you can see that they're slightly trembling a bit, and they're knobbly and gnarled. And she says, the only thing we have are the things that we make that are beautiful. What does it matter if they get destroyed or stolen or sold? Even in the coming of the dragon, this place survives somehow. But you get rid of the needle and the things I made with it. My hands are not the thing that matters. It's the things that I put my mark on. And those things are gone now. And they're not coming back.
How do you know that they're not coming back?
Who's gonna find them? Who's gonna
Yeah,
find
sure, gonna try.
And she says, she looks at you and kind of like, who's gonna find a needle in a city? Who's gonna find something that matters to an old woman and no one else?
You must have mattered to someone. This is the second time that, I mean, this was a very complicated operation. That needle must have mattered to someone else, someone powerful enough or connected enough to lure us away from the city and then attack you in your home. Were you here when this happened?
And she nods. She says, but I didn't hear it. I was down the hall in my own room, and she kind of points a trembling hand off to the hallway that you just came from, and there was another door you had seen at the end of that hallway, so presumably that's what she's talking about. And she says, but they were silent as the grave, they were. Or I was as fast asleep. I never used to sleep so deep, you know, but, well, I woke up the next morning and I felt something was wrong. I got up, came into the hall and down here and found this. She kind of looks around at the, wreck, and she says, they did this all without much noise. They took some of my best embroidery, some of my cloth, but most of all, they took all the needles, all the thread, and they took they took what I am.
Yeah, River
That
looks
seems
at
odd.
River looks at Inga and looks around the room like there is no way this degree of upheaval could have been accomplished without any sound.
Agreed, it seems unlikely.
And so she says to Kilda, Have you changed any of your habits lately? Do you drink tea before bed, or do you
She says, well, of course, I always drink tea. Tea's
Can you show us the tea, please?
And she kind of, I suppose. And so she gets up and shuffles, bent over, shuffles into the hall and then down to the end of the hallway, opens the door to her room and comes in, then comes out, and she's holding like a little teapot, which has got I guess a tea cozy, they call it, around it. And it's beautifully embroidered with what looks like a tree next to a fountain. Just absolutely gorgeous work. And she brings it over and she says, here's the pot of tea that I always have every day. Some of the finest leaf from the outside of Dale. One of my customers gave me a lot of that a couple of years ago. It's been a source of comfort to me over the last couple of years.
May I? And Inga reaches out her hand as into that she wants to hold the tea.
Yeah, she hands it to you, and it's just this little teapot, not the cup, but...
Yeah. Gonna open the lid and smell, like what it smells inside.
So, let's see, make... do I have you make? Make a medicine check for me, Inga. You know, that thing that you've specialized in your whole life for just this moment.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're probably gonna have to take this to Tawny.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, but you know.
Definitely tea. Yeah.
No.
And you're like, it smells like tea?
Can so like River is gonna want to investigate the like torn up room in a moment with
Okay.
Stone.
Okay.
But before doing that, like she's also gonna sniff the tea and I think we'll just like get Stone to sniff it as well, just to in case there's anything else going on there. Stone obviously can't make a medicine check, but
Right.
um
Yeah, Stone sniffs it and kind of gives you this quizzical, like, you know, tea? Doesn't seem to know. Based on just smell, there's nothing obvious that comes up from a scent. But yeah, and then you said you wanted to investigate, like, the room in general, like, sort of look
yeah,
around.
but can River also sniff at the tea?
Sure, and I'll let you make a medicine check, too.
Cool. Because she does have a little bit of knowledge there from hanging out with Tawny.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, like, it's tea. I mean, there's definitely nothing extreme about it, and of course it occurs to you that presumably if it had been this horrible smelling, you know, whatever, but it may be subtle though. But
Yeah.
nothing is obvious from just, you know, the scent of it. It smells like some tea that you have indeed had in Dale and or Escaroth during your various visits and travels there.
So River is like, okay, we should probably take some of this to share with our friend who's a scholar. Kilda, given how much preparation seems to have gone into this robbery, it would not surprise me if your sleep has been deeper lately because something that you are eating or drinking or smoking might be making you sleep more deeply. We don't have the kind of medical knowledge that would help us determine that for certain, but our friend Tawny Bear, the Hearthmender, he would. If we could take some of this and maybe some of the other things you've been eating or drinking before bed, we could maybe have a lead there.
And she says, well, you can do what you like, dear, but I don't know why anyone would want to harm an old woman. Why wouldn't they just poison me then and be done with it? Why just make me sleep deep?
You mentioned earlier that you got the needle back in the day from an old lover of yours. Is that correct?
Yes, from my only real love.
Who was he?
Oh, and she sighs and her eyes take this kind of faraway look and she says, his eyes were like a storm in the distance, like the darkness of the clouds, but with light in them. He was a good man, too. His name was Roner. He told me someday we'd have children of our own and a place of our own. He had me make something for him. I embroidered something he took with him when he went off to battle. Never came back from it. And I never forgot what it was like. There's a feeling you get when you're held by hands of someone you care for. It's like someone sewing love into your skin. And she just kind of, you know, sees some more tears fall and she turns away and she says, if you just leave now, dears, at least leave me alone in my sorrow. You can close the door on your way out.
River tries to, I mean, she'll sort of feel whether this is an acceptable attention or not, but you know, she'll the impulse to kind of gather her into a hug is very strong. And and like, you know, if it doesn't seem like that would be horribly unwelcome, she will try to do that all the same.
So you do that, and as you hug her, you feel the extraordinary frailness of a person who has a long life lived over many years of some happiness, but a lot of sorrow and sadness. It's like trying to carefully cradle a bird, and so you're sort of careful, and she doesn't resist it, but she doesn't kind of acknowledge it very much. Just kind of is there as you're sort of giving her the hug, and then she just kind of pats you sort of absently, like on your shoulder, and says, "All right, you be careful then, dear." And
Poor Brokilda. It grieves me to see you in the wreck of so much things. Let us look into that room just to see if there's any trace of who did this, but also to help you put it right. We can write things and at least make it tidy around you before we go.
and she sighs and she says, "You can look in my room if you want, but don't be cleaning anything up. It's just moving things around a disordered life now. Just look all you like, but then please, then be on your way." And she
Hilda, do you have any family or friends in town that you could stay with? You shouldn't stay here on your own.
And she kind of looks up and says, "I can't leave my home, even if it's what this place is. No, I ain't got no family now. As for friends, perhaps I thought I had more once upon a time. I don't know, some of the merchants, maybe, they know me, but I won't fall on their charity." And she turns and she says, "You mean well, and I appreciate it. But you got no cause. The two of you young ones have things to do in this life. I just have to wait for the end of mine." And she hobbles back down into the open room and out of your way.
River is so upset, but
Yeah.
it's like just kind of like, you know, grimly hold it together and looks to Inga and says, "We are finding that woman's needle. We are bringing it back. I don't care how many haystack-shaped cities we have to go through. We are going to find that needle." After I've stabbed it through Longo's eyes a few times. Maybe. Anyway. So River's gonna say, so it says, "All right, I think Stone and I should look through the ransacked room. Do you want to look through the food stuff, or just should we both look in the same place?"
Let's look together.
And it also looks to you, by the way, that there's basically 3 rooms here in this whole place. There's the biggest part of it is that room, which looks like it was basically the workshop where she did all her stuff. And then there's a small little bedroom. And on the other side is what looks like there is there's a kind of a, I guess you could call it a kitchen, is a little bit dramatic. But there's a little bit of a hearth there. In this other place on which there's a little cauldron that's hanging. It's currently cold and there's no fire in the hearth or whatever. But that might have been what's served for like a kitchen. There seems to be like a set of shelves basically where there's some dried different kinds of like herbs and stuff like that, it looks like up there. And then there is a little area that leads out to the back. And in the back is what looks like essentially a small little outhouse kind of in its own outdoor area, which is more or less shut off from everything else around it, although there is access from the roofs around it. So basically, there's no doors leading in and out except that come from the house. But the point is, it's open above it. So there's this little outhouse, and then sitting in this tiny little courtyard, if you could even call it that, and it's exposed above it to the air. So there's no other obvious exit from that area than the one that leads to the house.
So is it easy to tell at a glance how they got in? Like, is there a busted window, or is
Depends on what you're looking at. The only window here are the windows leading out of the workshop. The only door that's leading in and out besides the front door is the one that leads, back to that little outhouse that I talked about.
Okay.
Is there a basement?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so...
Or at least not an obvious one. I mean, not that you can tell.
So...
No, I don't mean that as, therefore, look for hidden trapdoors. I mean, the point is I wanted to be careful and not tell you stuff that you automatically didn't see. It doesn't
Well,
seem
I mean, like, this is a town at a river, so...
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. And there are canals, canals...
Yeah, there are canals everywhere, right? So...
Okay, so I'm going to investigate with stone. And so again, that's like at advantage and counts as proficient in the skill. Even if I'm not, if I'm proficient, you get a double proficiency bonus. So River and Stone are going to start in the ransacked room and kind of try to, besides looking for any evidence of who did this, any things that could lead back to people,
right?
Also try and see like what the path of ingress was, if that kind of shows itself.
Okay.
And River is proficient in investigation, so gonna do this at advantage and +3, I guess.
Yep. Sounds right. And then Inga, what are you doing? Are you in the other, like the smaller room, like the bedroom or the back room, or where are you?
I think I would check the backyard first. You mentioned, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I will come to that in just a moment. Okay, so we're looking at a 17 for that. So a couple things to note. First of all, it looks like
+3. Yeah.
So 20 total. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it looks to you that for all of the apparent destruction, there's actually surprisingly little that seems to have been taken, River. There are still plenty of, skeins of wool that are there. You can see there are several bolts of, a number actually, of bolts of cloth. There's even some reasonably expensive looking silk, which you feel like would have been something that, you could probably sell. No, all of that is still there. And in fact, the more and more you look, the more it seems that you certainly don't know what was in this place before you got there, but a lot of the material that you would think would have been saleable is still here. You don't find any money, and you don't find a lot of remaining embroidered pieces. All those are gone, which suggests that, they were, whatever embroidered stuff she had was mostly taken, except for that one blanket that we talked about. But yeah, a lot of the raw material is still here. The other thing is that as you're looking through it, you notice that this feels a little... This is over the top. Like, it almost feels like someone was like, make a mess, like try to really go out of their way to like pull stuff down and things like that, when it probably wasn't necessary, and in fact may even have happened after they found what they were looking for, because otherwise this would have made it a lot harder if they were looking for something in particular. There's not nearly as much missing as one might expect. The other thing is that just looking at the front, you can see that the front, the sort of shutters on the front of the window definitely were broken into. And there's wooden shutters on the outside, and then inside you've got several windows which basically pull inwards, so you can kind of unfasten them and then pull them inwards. And you can see that for one of them, they've been kind of hastily tied back together again with twine. But it looks as if like one of these windows was basically either taken off its hinges, or the hinge was somehow disabled such that they didn't break any glass. So the glass is still there, basically, but the hinges themselves were the ones that were broken into. And it is not a very big window, but it's probably big enough to allow ingress and egress. So, yeah. The door itself looks like it was probably just as locked before. I mean, the locks don't look broken, the hinges don't look affected, so it doesn't look like they came through the door. That's what you discover.
Interesting.
You also do not find any, in case you're curious, boot prints or obvious scraps of cloth, unfortunately. And sadly, we are not in a CSI dusting for prints stage, unfortunately. So,
does Stone have any reactions to scents that suggest a similarity to what we were chasing before?
No, but the definitely spends time sniffing around the sort of the window, and then sort of sniffs through the room and like seems to want to sniff down the hallway. So basically, from the window is like following a scent. So you could follow him if you wanted, but like that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
So he follows all the way into the little kitchen thing, and then the door where Inga is outside looking at this back, outhouse holding area. See you, Helness. And I guess, Inga, what I would ask is, in the back area where you are, what are you looking for back there? Like what are you? Yeah.
First checking like the door, if it's intact and everything.
Okay, make an investigation check for me, please. Okay, 16. So, yeah, it looks to you like the door definitely, it definitely looks to you as if the door was somehow broken into. There is only one lock on this back door as opposed to several locks on the front. And it looks to you as if the locks, although rather carefully, frankly, were somehow, the locks were picked somehow or were fiddled with so that the door was able to be opened. Because when you're looking at the locks again, they superficially look fine, but when you start sort of playing around with them, one of them kind of the lock kind of overturns, and like you hear like snap inside, as if there is a spring that was over tightened or hastily put back into place, which now snaps. And as that happens, the lock now just doesn't do anything. It just spins and spins and spins without being able to close. So, yeah. So it definitely looks as if they either left or came in this way. So, yeah.
Okay. Do I see any fresh scratches around the lock? Like how when you have like metal, that like when the scratches are fresh
definitely.
because they are not oxidized?
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, then I'm checking if there are any tracks or anything on the floor.
Okay.
Or like, what does this backyard look like exactly?
It's a very tiny courtyard. Like, I don't even know, 10 by 10, maybe 6, 7 by 7, very small. And the only thing that's in it really is just this one little outhouse, wooden, structure that is dilapidated and, has the classic moon on the front door, and all that, and a wooden handle. And then it's, again, there are these surrounding roofs. All the houses and shops seem to cluster right around this area. And so that there's no other windows or doors leading to any other building around it. It's just basically the thing. And the handle is well worn. Also, the path between the back door and the front door of the outhouse is also well worn, as if it's been, used over many years.
Are there any plants?
There's a few bits of like, grass and like weeds and stuff like that all around the outside of the courtyard, but nothing like really growing very much.
Okay,
it's a dirt floor, in case you're curious.
Walls for footprints, because like I'm assuming that somebody let down a rope from the roof and then climbed from there.
I'll have you make an investigation check, just as I would say the River and Stone at this point are sniffing their way through the door as you're doing that part. So, and Stone brings you all the way, River, into the outside where you can see Inga's looking at the walls. So there's nothing specific about, you don't really find like a scratch area or tracks that lead in a particular spot, but there does seem something odd to you about the whole kind of arrangement around here. Everything is kind of, as I said, clustered in. The roofs are sloping, but not that much. You know, it's not like it would be extremely difficult for someone to... but because of the nature of the way they're designed, since they're just this kind of area is just in the middle, this is not something you would notice if you were walking by on the street outside and you were like, oh, I wonder if there's a little courtyard with an outhouse back there. Like, it would be very hard for anyone even to know this existed unless they had done a lot of work beforehand in getting a sense of the lay of the land. If you follow what I mean. So they would not have seen this place with the outhouse unless they were up on the roof looking around the house to begin with.
How high is the way to the roof?
Maybe 7 feet.
Could I climb that?
Maybe with a bit of assistance. Because it's
like getting on the outhouse and then to the roof or something.
Oh yeah, if going on the outhouse, be aware now. It might hold people's weight, but it's dilapidated. Like, it's pretty run down.
Okay. Then I'm not gonna climb on the outhouse, but yeah, Inga is gonna wave over River and it's like, can you lend me a hand or two?
Yeah, of course. And so River, like, either give her a leg up or like just put her on her shoulders or something.
Okay.
Help out.
Okay. So you're able to do that, and you're kind of like, and you are able to get over to... Now, is there a particular roof that you want to try for? Because, like, River, I don't know how far you followed Stone, but basically Stone went past the outhouse and went all the way to the other side of the courtyard. And I say other side with the understanding that this is incredibly small. But, like, just walked to the other side, basically, and then sniffs, like, up and down the wall. So if that's where you want to go, Inga, you could go there if you wish. Yes. So... okay, so you are up there, and then I need you to make a dexterity check. It's not a difficult one, Inga, for you to get up onto the roof once you're up there.
Is the roof thatch?
No, there's tile here, although it's kind of broken and like it's not great shape, but it is roughly tiled and yeah, like slate and tile up there. Yeah, so you're like, huh? You're kind of like pulling up, and there's a sort of half comical moment where Inga's like half up and half not up, and like Stone is kind of like looking nervously up at Inga, and so you finally manage to like pull yourself up onto the edge of it, and roll over. And as you do so, Inga, River, you just duck out of the way as a couple of pieces of slate like fall down, like broken from it, and hit the ground. And Inga, this whole thing, as you look up here, there's a lot of little like broken stone and broken pieces, and even as you slate, I should say, tile, and even as you move, you feel it like crumpling a little bit and cracking below you. The point being, you're a hardy dwarf and all that. Thank you for the follow. You're a hardy dwarf and all that, but you're not that heavy, and so these roofs are not that strong. So whoever, if they did come over the roofs, they had to be extremely light or something, because it's hard for you to even just like sit up without feeling like this like creaking and like below you as you move.
So you said that some of these tiles are broken, right?
Yes.
Is it like a trail of broken tiles, or just like overall in general?
Broken down overall, yeah.
So while Inga is looking at that, so River is going to have, after she's like boosted Inga up, she's going to follow Stone where he is sniffing. And should I do another investigation check for out here?
Okay. Yes. With what purpose? Like, what specifically are you looking for?
Still the same as before, like to see if there's any traces left of whoever came through.
Okay.
But like, is it kind of clear from the way that Stone is following that trail that someone came over the wall, so like of the courtyard?
I mean, it's a guess, but he's certainly sniffing up the wall, so as if something or someone, whatever that scent was, from the window. The thing is, you don't know the direction. It's a reasonable guess to say someone came this way and then left, through the front, or someone came through the front and left out the back. But it does seem to be a distinct trail, one direction or the other.
It would have been a quieter trail to come in from the back.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. And you were saying that like only like someone would have had to know the place pretty well to know
To
the,
even
the
know
back
that this place
area?
existed, right?
Right. Okay. And okay. So yeah, so I'll do another investigation check to see if there's any trace of perpetrator left or something to pick up and follow.
Okay, go ahead and do that. And as you do that, by the way, Inga, you can, as you sort of slowly, carefully, get to your feet, you can do that without falling through the roof or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're fully aware that, like, you'll have to tread carefully, basically.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I mean, she probably has her fair share of experience with walking on roofs
Oh,
and
sure.
stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sure.
In recent.
Well,
memory.
I mean, like, also before the adventure started, because, construction worker, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Quick
So-
question too. The wall. Sorry, just to visualize this. The wall that Stone is sniffing up. Is there a door in that wall?
No. There is
No.
no window or door out of any of these things except for the door that comes from Kelda's house.
And how high is the wall?
The roof is what, 7? I think I said 7, so it's like 5.5, 6. The roof itself is maybe there's a little bit of a lip, so it's like just over the wall, but the wall is probably about 6 feet high, maybe.
I'm wondering if there's a way that, like, if we left through the front, if we could get around, and if there's a way for Stone to pick up the scent trail beyond the wall, basically.
Well, but the wall is just leading to the roof, so you'd have to get because it's the wall. The roof is on the wall, so I just meant the wall of the buildings.
The wall of the building, not like I was imagining.
No, not a separate wall. No, not
Okay,
like that.
Gotcha. Never mind.
Yeah, so if you want to put Stone up on the roof,
No, that's all good.
be my guest. I want to see the fan fiction art of Stone, riding over the the roofs of Dale. So
Okay, so I'll just do the investigation check
Okay.
to kind of wrap that, and then like just have River kind of. Right now, I'm sort of imagining like that famous scene from The Wire, where it's just like the two detectives measuring things and going, "Fuck," doing a word that is bad as the whole scene and stuff. But
Yep.
they're not cussing here, so investigation is what we are doing. So, I'm sorry, my mouse is very finicky and annoying today. So that's 15.
yeah, there is you basically find the same. There's no tracks per se. But and that's actually a little surprising that there aren't more tracks, because the ground here is just dirt, it's just dirt ground. So it's a little surprising that there isn't something more visible. But there really doesn't seem to be. And in fact, you don't really think that there are tracks beyond the obvious. I mean, there's a worn out area from the back of the house to the outhouse, as I mentioned before. But there's actually surprising that there's no tracks elsewhere. I mean, you would think that going on the ground would lead to something, but the only tracks really that you see at the foot of the wall are Inga's before she, got up on, and before you pushed her up onto the roof.
Does it look like the ground, because it's just loose dirt, right?
Right.
Is there any kind of brushed or raked quality to it? Like, does it look
No.
sort of...
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Interesting. Okay.
While you're looking down there, Inga, so now that you're up on the roof, what are you doing now as you carefully make your way?
I'm basically looking for anything that, like, catches my eye, like something out of the ordinary.
Okay. I'd say make a perception check for me, please.
Rolls today. Not great. Not great.
You hear a sniffing sound, and you kind of turn slowly, and you see it's Stone is like sniffing up and down the wall, and you can see the river is kind of looking down there.
So...
Otherwise, just a bunch of roofs.
River
Do I
look...
see? Oh, do I
sorry.
see any like roof windows of or something, or like a flat roof with like a door thing on top? Something
You do
like
not.
that.
You do not here. Most of these roofs look to be slightly sloping and/or flat, and made of the same kind of broken tile. If you look off, you can kind of see over to the west. There's an area that's sort of a nicer area, but it's not right. You'd have to go a considerable distance that way to get to that area where it looks like the roofs might be nicer and there might be things like that, but it's nowhere close to here. All the roofs around here are pretty much look the same as this one.
So River calls up to Inga and says, "This is very strange."
Yeah, no kidding.
And like she'll help Inga down if she wants to come down.
Yeah. Okay.
She says, "The room that was ransacked looks like it was ransacked for show. It doesn't look like it was actually anyone looking for something. It looks like it was someone trying to make a mess." And likewise, like she talks about the shutters and how like the shutters seem odd with this combination of things, and like there are no footprints except for ours. There's nothing here, but Stone can tell that someone was through here. So it seems as if someone has broken into this house and then tried to make it seem like a completely different kind of burglary. Now, quick question, Arv. The thing about the silver needle, like we know that is that Longo specifically wants this needle. Was that because the orc told us that?
Right. I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
That the orc basically was like, I hope the maggot finds the needle, blah, blah, blah. But he made reference, and he wants the needle for himself.
Right. So River says, it seems like if we know that this person wants this needle specifically, they seem to have gone to a great deal of trouble to make it seem as if that is not what they're after. It was just a regular burglary. But there are so many of Kelda's materials and things are still here. Her embroideries are mostly taken, and the needle that made them. So if there is perhaps some quality to the needle itself that makes it desirable, maybe it's enchanted or strange in some way, perhaps that's a quality that also extends to the embroideries.
Well, I mean, enchanted weapons are a thing. I don't see why enchanted tools shouldn't be. So,
We should
but
bring
yeah, it's like really odd, you know?
It is odd.
Like, who goes through so much work for a needle?
Someone with a few stitches loose?
Sorry.
But no, it's true. It is such trouble. But what Kelda said about why didn't they just kill her is another strange question to me. I mean, I'm very puzzled by the mind that orchestrated this. Why put her to sleep, and assuming that is what happened, to steal this? Why?
I can't shake the feeling that this somehow has something to do with this Rona guy that she mentioned.
Right, her lover. She said he never came back, but maybe he didn't die. I suppose we could look into him.
Or maybe an old friend of his, or family member, something like that. But I feel that has to be connected to him.
Right. I don't want to trouble her with more questions, but I have so many.
No, we should leave her alone for today. But we could go question the neighbors.
I do want to know, for someone to come through this part of the house, in the yard, it would have had to have been someone who knew this place.
Yeah.
Knew it quite well. I wonder if we could just ask one more thing of her. Of just, if there is someone who comes to, I don't know, a handyman or someone to, I don't know. But perhaps we should ask around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right.
We can come back later tomorrow, maybe, to ask Kelda more questions, but I think for today she had enough, probably.
Yeah. We should also bring these things back to Tawny, assuming that we have like, small portions of the tea and stuff. But yeah. Okay, so if we're wrapping up our thing, I think we're probably going to, like, if it's a little bit more of a neighborly hour now, then maybe we can knock on neighbors' doors to ask about what happened and stuff. But if you want to shift over to Tawny, that would also. Yes.
So if you're heading out, I just want to set one thing though, which is that when you leave and the door closes, I need both of you please to make perception checks for me.
Okay.
River, I think you can probably do this at +2 because of stone, not at advantage because that's not what this is. But
okay.
So we're talking 11. Is that what we got?
11.
11.
11.
I tell you what.
Get that prediction from Dick Van Dyke.
I think I still had. So just to remind myself, inspiration doesn't last past the month, right?
Correct.
I'm pretty sure I was given inspiration last time that I didn't use.
I think that sounds right. So this may be a good time to use it.
So I think I'm going to use it here.
Yes. That seems reasonable.
Okay. So perception, you said.
Yes, please. Okay.
So that's 18.
Good thing that it was used then for this particular one. When you go out and I would say that narratively the way that you notice this is there is a slight growl from stone. And there are more people, as was said. It's actually now the streets in front are getting fairly crowded, actually. The sun is now risen. And you see off in one side, basically just kind of peering, really kind of looking, I guess, over several people. You see a man with a cloak and a hood. I feel like I'm talking a lot about cloaks and hoods this episode. A lot of a cloaked and hooded man with dark hair and dark eyes. But the thing that strikes you is you think you may recognize him from the encounter at the gate at the beginning of this adventure. And as he sees you, he immediately whips his cloak around and books it in the other direction, basically pushing his way through the crowd.
Can we give chase?
I think you may. And as you begin to go to give chase, I'm going to cut to Tawny.
I'll be right back.
Chase moment. Okay. So, okay, give me just 1 second here before I cut over to Tawny.
Oh, exciting! I don't know if we've ever had a chase scene before. This is very cool.
We were the ones being chased.
Have we been? I mean, we've had
the whole trip to the Gloomy Fold.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've had forced marches, but I don't feel like that was a chase.
Not a city chase, certainly.
Not a city chase.
Yeah, not a
leaping over overturned cabbage carts.
Exactly. Not
like cabbages.
Not a.
After the poisoning, no, because we all just kind of sat around and helped the healers. Well, I sat around and helped the healers.
I also wasn't there for that session.
Yeah.
To my enormous dismay, but yeah.
Not a. It's definitely not a Mandalorian style chase through darkened city streets type of thing in these places. So we've got that going on. Okay, and this is actually a good moment just quickly to reset and welcome everybody who just popped in. This is day 7 of Adventures of Middle-earth, Erebor Adventures, the Silver Needle. You're watching the amazing Adventures of Middle-earth crew of Trendane Sparks, Brad Bollier, Terry Toons, and Amal El-Matar. You can find all of them at their various places, which they will tell you about at the end of this session. But if you like what you see in here, please follow the channel, support the channel, all that good stuff, and check out previous broadcasts of the stream as well. Now, Tawny, while they were all doing this stuff, you have been, after dealing with Cardis, the captain of the guard, you have headed your way over to deal with, hopefully, if not Bard, because he's busy attending to things apparently, then Elston. Let's see. So, I want to take you up to... not that one. Oh, yes. Too many books. I want to take you up to here, the Royal Palace, which I believe is 14, which is up to the... yes, okay. So the Royal Palace basically is right where... exactly, right where that's positioned. And let me get rid of Kelda. Because...
whoa, man.
Let me just get rid of Kelda, all right? Take her out. Haha, know what I'm saying? Okay. So you make your way to the Royal Palace, and now you've been obviously here several times before, but you have been here also when this was actually not that far from the situation that happened with the poisoning and all that stuff. So you're used to this place before. But as you come into this area, Tani, I would say that the area here that you're sort of walking in feels kind of oddly gloomy to you. There's nothing particular. There are guards that are there and all that. It's not like it's deserted or, supernaturally weird, but it just feels gloomy. You can tell from the attitude of both the guards and the people around that there is some kind of weight that people are dealing with around here. And so when you come up to the palace and go into the guards, they recognize you, of course, and one of them, hails you and says, Thane Tanibear, what may we do for you, sir?
Who was the captain I was just talking to?
Cardis.
Cardis. I was going to say Calix. It's like, no, that's a different game entirely.
You want Calix right now. He just breaks through doors and,
Yeah.
Yeah. Calix, the door-breaking barbarian.
Right. I just asked you, what did you say his name was?
Cardis.
Cardis. Okay, yeah, Curtis.
Like TARDIS, but with a car.
Okay, or
Right.
Curtis.
It's K-A-R, but otherwise, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, so Cardis.
Yes, I was just speaking with Captain Cardis. He mentioned that perhaps Her Majesty might be in need of my skills.
And there's a sort of the guard. Oh, that's a bad business. A bad business. Well, the king is with the queen, but at the moment she's up with her own healers. If you want, I can bring you inside and introduce you, and we can send someone down, perhaps, to bring you up.
Very well.
And so he nods, and you go inside. And even in the palace, in the inside of this palace, it's rather a somber kind of environment, I think you might say. The royal palace, to be clear, is a stone palace. It was built by dwarven masons under the direction of the king under the mountain. And the thing that's unusual about this palace, for those who don't know, is that it was actually constructed of this dark polished stone that's quarried from the Lonely Mountain, and it was built strong, marble pillars and the whole 9 yards. And so given the fact that Dale itself is in this constant state of, repair and the modern being added to the old and everything else, this stands out as like, this thing is on its own as kind of this sort of mini fortress within Dale. There are a little bit of echoes, maybe, Tani, just a bit, of the temple in the Glimmerhorn, you may remember, that you fought on top of and like all that stuff, just because of the darkness of the stone. But of course the feel is not the same and all that. But nonetheless, it's an imposing structure. And when you walk inside, I don't know if you've ever been, I imagine you have at some point been inside a church or a cathedral with sort of these echoey marble walls, do you know what I mean? Like these dark stone walls. And there's always this sense not just of the voices echoing, but of the cold of the walls that is reflected. And that's what it feels like. It feels a little chill in here. And so the guard brings you in and has you wait as he goes up these marble stairs. And then after a minute, he comes back down, and you can see that he's got this sort of, he's got an expression on his face that seems a little bit of bemused, perhaps. And he says, well, it turns out that the king is not at the moment available and the queen is asleep. The healers don't want anyone even with respect to you disturbing her, although they do wish to speak to you later. But in the meantime, the person that's asked to see you is Lord Haken. Captain Elston is away. He went out early this morning to attend to some things around the perimeter of Dale. And so Lord Haken is asked to see you. Now, you know Haken is this kind of nobleman who... He's kind of an administrative assistant, you might say. I mean, I don't want to make him into something that's less than he is, but he's someone who does less of the warring and more of the, accounting, let's say, for those things. And so has called for you.
All right.
So they bring you up, and you are ushered into this antechamber where there's just you standing there, and then there is this basically this desk behind which has multiple sort of papers on it, and Lord Haken himself, who I think I have a picture of actually, but just give me 1 second and I'll find it for you. If I have a picture, I like using them because I think they're cool. Okay, and that looks like this. Give me the thing. Yes, good. All right, lovely. And then there's this. No, I don't need a picture of a needle. Thank you. There we go. Lovely.
Echo, I believe Coven is speaking of Wilfred Brimley and his amazing mustache, who, yes, did pass away.
Did recently pass away. Which is a violation of what we were explicitly told in Cocoon would happen, which is we won't ever get sick and we won't ever die. That's what we were told. Okay, there we go. So I will fire this up on stream so you can see this person.
He just didn't eat his Antarian oatmeal, so that's the problem.
Oh.
That was
Okay,
then where they went, was Antares.
That's what I'm looking for. Okay, good. That was... For just a second, I had popped up this this picture, and it was like really small, and I was like, "What the heck?" So I was like, "I don't." You find a fairy here, and okay, that is not who this is. So here we go. So this person is behind the desk, and you can see him right here, and is looking down and is sort of attending to. Whatever it is that he's doing, seems to be writing and doesn't immediately acknowledge or maybe even know of your presence. And he's just, busily writing, on this piece of paper, on this piece of parchment, and is writing. And then the guard says, and Haken doesn't really even look up. And yes, Lord Haken, I've brought him as requested. Oh yes, thank you. Carry on. And so the guard leaves. And Haken is writing and says, not looking up, and he says, I apologize for the rather terse way I must attend to this, but there are all manner of things that must be accounted for here. It's been a difficult few months, what with various harvest problems. I called you because I understand there's some problem going on in the city with bandits, and I thought I would ask if you knew of any details about them. And he's still scribble, scribble, write.
Not many, but a few.
And he nods and is still, scribbling. He says, and would you mind saying what exactly the details are? What do you know of these things?
How well do I know this guy?
You don't know Lord Haken very well. Haken was one of the group that dealt with things after the poisoning situation, as being one of the administrative people that tried to organize getting everyone the supply lines managed and stuff like that. He's known to be very keen when it comes to how to make how to get the money to go from one place to another where it's supposed to and all that stuff. He's definitely good on that score, but you didn't encounter him. This was a person who came after the situation of the Battle of the Five Armies. He's not, as far as you know, native to Dale, and he's not a warrior or anything of that sort. So.
Several days ago, my companions and I were drawn into an altercation at the south gate with involving one of the citizens of Dale, a fairly well-known seamstress. It seemed at the time that they might be trying to rob her in some way, and when we put a stop to that robbery, we eventually ran into someone who gave us a bit of direction as to where we might find those robbers who ran off to the south. Upon following up on those that bit of advice, we, in somewhat short order, came to the conclusion that it was a ruse intended to get us, if no one else, at least us, out of the city. For when we returned, after dispatching most of those orcs, that one of the guards at the south gate had mentioned that her home had been invaded and her property taken, which only serves to lend further credence to the idea that it was a distraction to get us out of town.
I agree, and this is unfortunate. But unfortunately, I don't know anything more about the details of who it might be that would order this. Bandits themselves are obviously always problems, but some organization seems unlikely, and he's sort of still scribbling away. He seems to have marked and signed like 5 documents since you've been talking.
Yes, it does seem a bit unusual. She's a very impressive lady. No small amount of deep skill and artistry.
He nods. One of the best embroiderers of Dale. I know of her well. She was responsible for embroidering some of the work from my house in the days before the coming of the dragon.
So, my companions are presently checking up on her, see how she's doing. But obviously I'm here, so I don't know what's going on with that particular avenue. I was under the impression that that Her Majesty was in need of my attention.
And yes, that's a bad situation. She has been ill for some time, and the best healers have been able to do little to solve the problem. It is one of the reasons why I have been dealing with some of these matters administratively, as the king has been otherwise and understandably occupied. I would have thought that once that business was handled, once you and your friends were able to solve that situation with the shadow, that we might see more peace here in Dale, but it seems ever our lot to face sorrow after sorrow. I wish there were names associated with these people, something we could put and follow, names to faces, perhaps.
True, that would be most likely a great help. My lord, I am not normally given to displays of undue pride. However, you say that the best healers have been consulted. Why has no one asked me?
And so he stops and he says, well, it is a good question.
Yes, that would be why I asked it.
So he pauses and then he kind of like, for the first time, looks up, and you can see he has these piercing gray eyes. And he says, The answer is that as of yet, the information about the Queen is not known by most within Dale. There are rumors, but nothing certain. There are concerns that there are others about that may have their own reasons for wanting the Queen to be... And he sort of looks around, and the door is still open behind you, and he stands up and he walks behind you and closes the door. And then he goes over and he sits back down, and he leans back and he says, "The king has been concerned that there is a plot against the Queen's life for some time. When the Queen became ill, the king was further concerned. He sent for, at the time, the best healers that he had. You were away from Dale at that time, and he did not wish to send messengers because he was concerned about what could have happened. He suspected that the Queen had been poisoned, and, as you know, poison has been a sore trial for the king in previous experiences. He did not trust any of the messengers or anyone around him except very few to even know this information in the first place, and I tell it to you only because you are the heroes of Dale, and I am not a messenger. But that is the reason that you and others around were not told. There was a question of whether that information would demoralize the populace, and whether the knowledge that the king suspected poison from the Queen would mean that there would be other attempts made against her or him, though he cares much less for his own life than hers."
May I see her?
He says, "I will bring you to her. But," he says, "the reason that I asked you up here in the first place was to speak to you about these troubles. Thus I trust you. But please be aware I do not trust everyone, and I would ask that you not do so either."
We have already seen within the walls of this city that trust can be a precious commodity and traded away far too easily on those we are expected to do commerce with.
And he... Oh, sorry.
I was just... Tony was just going to be like, take me to her.
Okay, so he nods, and he gets up. He leaves his quill on top of the papers, and walks out, opens the door again, and he brings you up this small flight of stairs, and then up and down this hallway, and there is a guard standing outside this door that is at the end of this hallway. And the guard, which already seemed like he was paying attention, but I mean, he snaps to attention again when Lord Haken approaches with you. And Haken says, "It's all right. Give way. I have brought Thane Tonybear, the Hearthmender, to attend to this." And the guard sort of nods, looking a little wide-eyed, and steps aside and opens the door. And you enter a room. Now, this is not the Queen's bedroom. It's not this, because the Queen's bedroom would presumably be as dramatic looking as everything else here. This is a fairly small, relatively speaking, room. And there are several attendants and healers that you can see, or what you assume are healers. In fact, one of them you might even recognize from the poisoning situation from a couple of some months ago. But they are all standing, a couple of them are standing next to the bedside. One of them has a damp cloth, which they're applying to the head of the person who is lying in the bed. And standing next to the bed and looking down with his arms crossed and looking even more grim than normal, if that's possible, is King Bard. So the thing to note about Bard is that Bard has never been a character that, that Bard does not, he doesn't have the best sort of bedside manner, I guess you might say. He's a grim man, and even at his sort of best days, his sort of happiest days, has never been someone that's like, okay, everything's great, and but you notice that even for him and what you remember of him, his demeanor is dour at best. So let me pop up here very quickly a picture of him. There we go. All right. And this, and that, and that, and let me pop this up on stream. There we go. So, so yes, a grim-faced bard, he was actually called in the days when he was a warrior before he became the king, and he is staring down at the body of the queen, who is a fair woman, fair of face, and yet looks terribly shrunken, gaunt, and skeletal is too strong, but looks, very, very just
Slight.
yes, slight. Her face is wan and pale, and her breathing is very shallow, and he is just staring down with his arms folded, and he doesn't even look up as Haken comes into the room with you, and Haken says, "My lord, I have brought someone who may be of some service." And Bard, kind of like with his arms folded, just looks over and then sees you, Tawny, and Thane Tawnybear, yes. You've come to us at not the best time for me, I am afraid.
How fortunate then that I'm not here for you, Your Majesty.
And he looks over you again and he says, "If you have come to help her, and you think there is something that can be done, then by all means." You can see that he speaks huskily. His voice is harsh, as if, but not harsh from, like I'm being mad at you, but just like harsh from maybe even disuse and possibly even grief, which is not something you've ever remembered hearing about anything with Bard. This, by the way, the name of his queen is Queen Una. She was known as Queen Una the Fair, and she lies on the ground, and it lies on the bed, and as I said, face is flushed, is wan and pale, and there's sweat that is beaded up on her forehead, shallow breathing, and so Bard says, "You may do whatever you wish, but there is something working within her veins beyond most normal skill." And he kind of steps back and gestures, and the healers kind of look up. The one that you do recognize sort of almost kind of like, not exactly smiles, but there's like an expression of slight relief that comes over her face, and so they give you access, if you wish.
Basically, as soon as he steps in, even before he speaks to Bard, Tawnybear is just going to and breathe in the scent of the room to see if there's anything, because sometimes you can almost identify, by scent. It's like, oh, okay, it's this.
No, except
not because of. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, you don't smell anything obvious except for the fact that this definitely smells like a sick room. In that it is, there's a lot of smell of sweat and, unpleasant odors of various types, and it looks as if this room, which does not have a window to the outside, has seldom been opened since they've been in here. Now, there are many basins and waters, and you see various like herbs like stacked up in various places, so it's not like they've just left her in the bed, but you definitely get the impression that this is not a room that has been open to many. Not many people have been in or out of this. You would guess for a while, maybe a couple of weeks.
A long time to be without ventilation.
Not just that, but that's a long time for someone to not send someone to find us. Especially when we've been back and forth setting up the Haven at Midway. It's like,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Right. So Tawny's going to step in and, take her hand, get a feeling. I'm sure she's quite. When you're damp, what's the word? Clammy.
Clammy is exactly the word.
Yeah.
Not warm, in fact, very chill, clammy, and very shallow, rapid pulse.
The aforementioned sense, it's probably clear that she's been purged a time or two.
Yes.
Does this seem to be a long-acting poison or something that has somehow repeatedly been administered over
And-
the past weeks or months?
And I assume you're asking this of the healers, or okay. So the healer says she fell ill a few weeks back, but at least at first it seemed like a normal, everyday sort of business. Hold on a second. We have disconnect on chat. I don't know why. Okay, I think that was just a chatty thing. I think we're okay here.
Hey, you have joined Arvanella. Nice.
Okay. Everyone still with us?
Get hyped.
Okay, good.
Says nonstop.
All right, good. I don't think we ever actually lost anything. It was just chat for a minute. Okay, so
Oh, which means chat doesn't mean anything to him.
hey,
You
no,
hear that?
chat means
You hear that?
everything.
Uh-huh.
Listen, you. All right. So when you the healer says, so it was several weeks ago that she fell ill, but at least initially it seemed like nothing of significance, a small fever perhaps. But then the problem progressively grew worse. But it was hard to make it specific. Sometimes it was a fever, sometimes she grew very cold with chills, sometimes she would cough, sometimes there was nothing of that, but the heart would flutter. It was a strange, strange illness. And the king, and she kind of looks over at the king, who's still looking back down at the queen, called upon us and several others from elsewhere, asked for every herb that we could find. Some things would seem to lighten symptoms, but then they would return the next day. She has been fed nothing except what we ourselves gave her, and these were planned by us ourselves. And so, thank you so much for the tier 2 resub, Echo. I appreciate it, man. Thank you, all the subbage. He says, as we were in the process of doing this, made sure that no one could get to this. And so I think, if I had to guess, that whatever happened to her happened in that time before this, 3 weeks ago or so, not something which has been continual. We have even tasted the food we've given her since, and have had no such similar effects. And the king sort of, without looking at the healer, says, I would add to that I have had concerns of this for a while, and I had employed tasters for precisely this purpose, except that she did not like that we did this. She did not want anyone else to take risks on our behalf, and she thought that I was being needlessly foolish in my doubts and fears. She told me that it was my suspicious nature that would cast darkness over this land. Why was my soul perpetually doomed to give warnings of things which then must come true?
Such questions, Your Majesty, are not my particular area of expertise.
And he basically dives into whatever the house equivalent, Doctor Strange equivalent of CSI is for
Make a medicine check for me, please. I should
Okay.
also point out, by the way, that Una also was dark-eyed and is dusky-skinned. So when I say pale, even more than might normally be the case. Normally her complexion was darker, and so something is, not right.
Just a little ashen.
Yes, that's a
I was
good
gonna
term for
say
it.
that
Ashen is a good term for it, actually.
the medical version of the CSI is probably House MD.
That's true. Actually, so you just need to get a cane for yourself and just be like, get out of the way, do what I tell you, shut up.
He's got his staff.
Thank you.
That's true. You're just, three times House's size, but otherwise that's
Yeah, whatever.
okay. Yeah, so make a medicine check for me.
Yeah, and that actually is the proper 15. The proper terminology for it is ashen. When someone with dark skins.
And
whatever the opposite of
so,
flushed is.
so yes, so as you begin to start doing this, and you're looking at a 15. Sorry, chat. I know that's not updated. Let's fix that. There we go. 15. As you're going through and you begin to kind of process and feel around, and there are a couple of things that are sort of noticeable to you. The first is that the pulse is fast, but the shallow part is important because you don't think the circulation is very good right now. Something in this is kind of, if you were to put it this way, constricting the vessels, and you don't think that the blood is getting through the skin very quickly. What makes this difficult is that as you're sort of feeling around the outside and so forth, there are no puncture marks that are obvious. There are no, cuts or slashes. This must have been something, if it is poison, that was consumed orally, and that was either drunk or eaten of some way. And that means that it is difficult to get an assessment of what exactly was doing this. Although most poisons that that affect this sort of thing are designed to be sort of quick acting. You take this like at the feast. You take it and then you drop, you fall over a half hour, an hour, or something like that later. In this situation, something which works slowly and insidiously like this, you have heard of. But these tend to be very expensive, very illegal, and they take some work to administer safely. But you do know that there are some single-dose poisons that can do something of this kind, but again, exceedingly expensive and beyond the skill of your typical cut-purse thief in the night or assassin who just wants to poison someone to get some money off him.
One would hope. Because if this was commonly available, this would be a very different world.
Yes, that's true.
I want to just check quickly for myself. How do we check whether or not we have inspirations available? Because I can't remember if I.
Exclamation point! Inspiration space dash have, and that will tell you whether you have one. And it says you do have the option to use inspiration with one inspiration available to you.
All right, I would like to inspire Tawny to whatever feats of medicine he wishes.
All right.
Ordinarily, I would say no, save it for.
Yeah. Suddenly you feel a breeze pass under the door, and suddenly feel slightly energized, as if you, Tawny.
And then how do I inspire Tawny again?
Exclamation point inspire space and then Tawny Bear will do it. She's the final aim. Yes. Go ahead.
Has she been able to keep any food down at all?
And the healer shakes her head. Some liquid and broth on occasion, Lord, but very little of it. She has really not eaten anything of solid value for several days. Before that, it was just liquid and broth, and I was just prepared to begin a process of bleeding, which is, as you know, dangerous. Now, the process of bleeding... you talked about purging before. The process of bleeding in these days involves the actual cutting of certain strategic areas to allow the blood to flow. People traditionally think of this in medieval times, and they think of it as being this awful, this is a horrific example. There was some actual logic to the notion of bleeding and how the thing was actually done, but it's dangerous. Say again, I'm sorry.
And to leeches.
And to leeches, yeah, exactly. In fact, leeches have returned as having some value, even in some current medicine.
I was going to say,
and they were actually called in some cultures leeches were the medicine folks too. But so there's some value to it. Nonetheless, it's dangerous, especially with someone who obviously is dealing with pulse issues as we speak. So you can tell even as the healer says that, the healer's kind of like, this is not great, but, you know.
And then Tawny just kind of...
And the healer shrugged. The healer shrugs like...
And his expression gets a little bit darker, and like, I said, nope. You know, just kind of very silently shaking his head.
Yeah.
A little bit more firmness.
Yeah. You get the impression the healer's not trying to be defiant. They're just more like, we don't know what to do.
We don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
So Tawny reaches into his bag, and he pulls out a twice-baked honey cake.
The classic.
And he tears it open and digs into the center for some of the softer parts that are in the middle, and hands it to one of the other healers and tells them, I want you to dissolve this into whatever you're going to feed her, so that it is thinner than porridge, but thicker than water.
And the healer nods. They have, all the healers, incidentally, there's like 3 of them, looks like they all look really tired. But they immediately do what you say. They start mixing it and all that stuff, and stirring it. As you're doing this, Tawny, I want you to make one more medicine check, please. Because something seems odd as you're in the process of doing this about the smell of the breath. And it may be a reminder to you or something.
Do I use the inspiration on this or no? I'm going to go with no.
Okay.
Because I think I'm going to need it later for the actual treatment.
Okay.
So long as that actually happens this session, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, it should, because I don't expect we're
we've
going
got
to...
9 minutes.
Yeah, no, we're going to run a little bit over. I want to make sure that I finish with Bolo, but...
24.
Wow. Not needed. Okay, so... You
and a natural one. So
yeah. Yeah, you got it on the right side of the line, though, to begin with, the left, I guess, in this case. So you smell something on the breath, and it is a reminder to you, and you cast your mind back, Tawny. You were reminded of when you were treating certain illnesses, and it was the poison event that we're talking about that was related to Dale. It reminds you a little bit of the poisoning that happened with the warriors, basically. However, the thing that strikes you about this smell of the breath, it was the same smell of breath that you got from those warriors, but it is much stronger and more pungent. And the reason this matters to you is it occurs to you that there are certain distant remedies that only function when they are keyed to specific poisons. That is to say, there are some poisons for which only certain antidotes will work. And I cannot emphasize enough how extraordinarily expensive it is to get something like that. It's just, you can't get this usually. So this, you think, is likely, if it's anything like what you were dealing with then, is something which may require a particular kind of antidote, which is often drawn from the original poison, which makes it particularly insidious, because it means the only real way to long-term fix it is to find the person who poisoned in the first place.
Right.
Also, this was a really impressive medicine check that unlikely most of the healers would have had any idea of what I just said.
Right.
Like, they figured out it's probably poison, but they have no way of knowing what I just said.
Right. Well, Tawny is going to... The healer that he worked with before, the one who he just added the honey cake for to, will also, when she comes back,
and she's done now, so
okay, and he will mention this to her, and he'll pull King Bard in so that he can speak lower, more quietly.
Okay.
So that like the two of them can hear him.
Okay.
But not really anybody else.
Gotcha.
And he will explain all of that. And so what we need to do is find the who. I suspect I already know the why. But the who will lead us to the what.
And from the what, I may be able to find something that will actually help in the longer term.
So Bard says, again, quietly, but now looking at you with that intense gaze that he has been saving for his wife, looks at you and says, if there is anything that you can do, that I can assist you with, or the people here, simply name it. But whatever you do, Thane Tawny Bear, must be done carefully. This here is a strike against me and the people here of Dale. And if word gets out that it has struck close to my heart, and it has, and he looks back at the queen, he says, there is no telling what our enemies will be emboldened to do. I will help however I can, but this must be kept quiet.
Yes, it must.
Okay. And as you're looking down, thinking about that, I'm going to jump us back over to Bolo. Bolo, you have been brought through strange alleyways and places that are, mysterious and shadowy, to essentially into this, after what seems like a half hour of like walking through what feels like the exact same place over and over again, but is obviously like multiple alleyways and things like that. You were eventually brought close to this one, what looks almost like a there's a couple of large basically barrels that are stacked up against each other, and they look very much like storage barrels that would be in the back of various houses and so forth. But as these are a little bit odd in that they are piled along the back of this one particular alley that seems to be a dead end. And as the ones who have been leading you are following along to the back, they kind of take a look around themselves and then like multiple knocks like that, and on one of the barrels. And then there is a whistle from somewhere, non-specific, and a responding whistle from one of the people with you. And then the front of the barrel literally just like hinges open, and you see that there's actually a door in the barrel that is not particularly tall. The men in front of you and the men and women sort of duck their heads a little bit. You don't have to worry about that as you go in there. You go in, and then the door closes behind you, and you are led down these stairs into a room of what seems like actually multiple chambers, really, that are lit by these flickering sconces, torches on the wall, and the smoke seems to be lit up by sort of holes, almost natural holes in the ceiling. This down here feels very almost like limestone, Bolo, is what it might feel to you. This actually looks like it's below the level of the normal construction of this area, and you would not be surprised if this were fairly close to some of the canals and sort of rivers that, honeycomb basically Dale, and you might be in one of those areas possibly. And so the torches, such as they do, kind of sputter a little bit and give off a bit of this smoke as they do, and it's clearly you can even feel in your lungs kind of the dampness of it. And so you're kind of as they lead you through this place, one of them says, the same one who's been kind of having a problem with you maybe before, brings you over and says, all right, you can wait here. Brindle will be here in a bit. In the meantime, and he kind of looks at one and kind of jerks his head over his shoulder. The person comes over and sort of tosses to you this essentially dark-looking, hobbit-sized cloak. And you can see that it's kind of this nicely made wool, sort of dark wool. And yet as you sort of lands on your lap, you notice that unlike wool, it makes almost no sound when it lands. It's very quiet. And they say, Brindle wants you to wear something like this. We don't allow people in civilian clothes. And so turns around and says, put it on, she'll be here in a minute. And don't disappear. And then walks off. And so you now got this wool cloak on your lap.
And are there still others in this area?
Yes, there are, but they're not paying attention to you. They're like all like moving around to different spots. You see, there are also some. I should describe the room. That this room also has several like bunks or like bedrolls, basically around the walls, and you can see there are a couple of people who are sleeping in them. They have their cloaks folded that are next to them. Some of them are still wearing their cloaks, and all different kinds of people. You do notice there is actually a dwarf here, although the dwarf is currently asleep, with a cloak next to them. You don't see any halflings, but you do see an elf or two probably, and then some humans as well. Also, no Bjornings. It should be made clear. So no other Tawnies going in for the business of being a thief. I
Ceilings
guess.
are too low.
Yeah. It doesn't work out so well. But that's what you see around the corner. There's also a couple of like foot lockers that you see too that are closed.
I'll pull on the cloak and just sit down, but I'll just flag somebody who is sort of close and say, who are you? What are you known as?
And
not you, but us.
And sort of the person looks you up and down. It's actually the young elf woman that you saw before, and she says, us. And she says, what makes you think that you're one of us? Her accent is different, by the way, than some of the people in Dale you notice.
Oh, maybe I am and maybe I'm not, but I'm still wondering who you are.
Well, we're one of the irregulars, they call us. Broken Stones. It's a little name that we've been using while we've been doing our work here. But Brindle will tell you about all of that if she chooses to. I don't entirely know why you've made yourself not very popular with some of the people around here. And she looks over at the guy who's kind of talking to someone else, and every so often like looks over you, shouting, shooting glares of annoyance in your direction. And she says, but Brindle must have seen something in you. Who knows why she recruits people that she does. But anyway, if you do get to join us, you'll be one of the Broken Stone irregulars.
I've heard a bit about Longo.
Longo?
And
your eyes kind of like, Longo?
I understand you're not with Longo, but are you enemies of his?
And she says, well, this is really something more for Brindle to tell you about, but we're not friends, I'll put it that way. Here in the Broken Stone, you're part of one of several groups. Mostly, you either answer to him, or you don't, and you watch your back in case you get a knife from him in the back. No, we're not working for Longo, but that means that we've got several to look after. The guards, and Longo's people.
Fair enough. I'll just kind of let it drop and wait for Brindle if she shows.
And she does. In not too distant, not very long afterwards, Brindle shows up, comes down the stairs, talks to a couple, including your, in quotes, friend, and then walks over to you and looks down and she says, he says, I was wondering what it was going to look like when you had a chance to put some of our finery on. Perhaps not what you're more used to in your extensive experience learning to be moving in the shadows, but hopefully you'll find this a little better.
Yes, and I thank you for it.
And she says, I asked around a little bit about you. There's not much information about you except one, and that is that you've been seen in the company here in the past of those known as the Heroes of Dale. Now that crew's got quite a reputation on it. Some people say that they actually saved Dale in the first place. Truthfully, no hero's ever gone and asked me my opinion about anything. But if you're spending your time with all the lords and ladies in the palace, and bowing and scraping to King Bard, may his reign ever last, then perhaps, and she kind of stops and looks at you and her eyes narrowed a little bit, I wonder if you're more loyal to them than you would be to us. I mean, what would happen if we asked you to perhaps take a purse from one of the friends that your companions hang around with, say?
Well, I don't know that would bother me too much. I delivered a message to them, and as a favor to someone who needed that message delivered, and I came back with them from the wilds. That was about the extent of it.
And she nods slowly and she says, and
Turns
then you
out-
just decided to wander into the Broken Stone yourself?
Well, it turns out they didn't really have a job for me, and Hobbit has to provide for himself, you know.
And she says, so all you're asking me to believe is that you just need a job. That's all, just a job.
Well, I have bigger aspirations, but for now, a job will do.
She nods and she says, and in return, what are you asking from your employers? And she folds her arms.
A safe place to be, a little bit of protection. This is a big city. Lots of dangers, I assume.
She says, you're right. Many dangers. In fact, you're in the midst of them right now. And she kind of looks around at the room around and she says, there's nothing but dangers, Bolo. I wonder a little bit whether or not you understand that those dangers could be coming right to you because you're seeking them out. Where I come from, you take the money you can and you get away from the danger so you can spend it safely. You seem to be doing the opposite. You got no money and you got lots of danger.
Well, that's true, but I always found that there's safety in numbers. That's what I'm looking for.
And she says, are you saying that you want to join us so we can give you some protection and safety and you can get a job? And then, what? You vanish like you did on my lads back there behind the Honest Thief when it gets good? Or you sell us out to your other friends? Or you stab us in the back when you think you can get a better job elsewhere? What exactly would be your path, Bolo?
Well, I'm a young hobbit looking for a way in the world. And if that means that we both benefit while we're together, and hopefully that's a long, fruitful relationship, then so be it.
And she nods slowly. Sorry, go ahead. You were going to say?
Oh, no, I was just clearing my throat, sorry.
Okay, she nods slowly and she says, I see. You seem awfully wholesome for this line of work, Bolo. I must be honest with you. You seem awfully innocent for it. And that's either true or it's a really impressive cover. And he looks, she sort of carves, like looks down, like kneels down slightly and kind of looks at you. Go ahead, Bolo.
I found that that's a rather useful tool, if you can put it to good use, that is.
And she nods. All right, then. You mentioned the word Longo before. And from what I hear, you've mentioned that name several times. So, before I send you anywhere, what exactly do you want to know about Longo? Why are you interested in him? And mind, I like you, Bolo. For some reason, despite my misgivings, I like you. But I'll only take that so far. If you want to be one of us, if you want our help, then I'm going to need to have to trust you, and that means honesty. You got me?
I do. Well, I'd heard his name, actually, through the group that I was with, that you mentioned, the Heroes, Vale. He had sent some people to look for the group and actually sent an ambush after them. And to be honest, I'm not a straightforward fighter. I'm not into that sort of danger, putting myself at that sort of risk. And I thought maybe he was the sort of place that would give me the protection I needed. He sounded like someone who mattered in this city.
Oh, he matters all right, but not if you want protection. And she says, you may have heard from the others that there's a couple of people who work here in Brokenstone. Some of them are freelance, you might say, although they don't last very long. And then there's a couple of main groups. I run the largest group that's here in Brokenstone that doesn't pledge allegiance to Longo. And it's not for lack of trying on his part. In fact, Longo's made every effort he can for the last 6 months or so to try to move in and take control of all the operations. Except, as you might have noticed in the backyard of the courtyard there of the Honest Thief, I don't much take with being told to work with someone else. I run this group, because the only thing that's ever happened in my life when I wasn't running things was bad. So I'm the one in charge here, no matter what Longo says. But the truth is, if you're trying to get help from Longo, you're in the wrong place. All I can give you is a group that works, she shrugs, separate from him, you might say. I wouldn't call us friends. In fact, I'd likely call us enemies.
I wonder. I'm starting to trust you a little bit, Frindle. So,
That's a mistake, love, but go on.
but I think I can share this much with you. The other group I was with was looking into a break-in at a seamstress. And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name.
Kelda, I've heard of it.
Kelda.
We had nothing to do with that, though. I won't have anything going after old women. First of all, they've got no money, and secondly, it's bad for business. Words gets out that you're stealing from old women, and suddenly you get guards breathing down your neck.
It's an odd thing. I only mention it because I thought, well, maybe you had some information about it, but maybe Longo's up to something strange.
And she,
you know anything about it?
And she sighs and she says, used to be that Longo was just a name, just a rumor. But like I say, about 6 months ago, we start hearing more about him. Then he starts moving in, sending his emissaries, sending his thugs, really, to come deal with others. Coming in and jumping around us, jumping in on picks that we had all set, understand? Marks we had arranged. And then, and this is the part where I broke completely with any kind of potential alliance with him, he started trying to frame us for the stuff he was doing. And that I won't have, love. It's one thing to be trying to run from the gallows on my own account, but I won't swing because someone set me up. Once that happened, I decided it was time for us to break free, and to not do anything involving him again. Since that time, we've had to be cautious about how we manage things, and it hasn't made things easy. Not like we were doing the best that we possibly could before, but especially having to watch that we stay clear both of the guard and of Longo. It's been lean times somewhat. She kind of like glances over her shoulder at some of the other people on the bedrolls and so on. And she says, so all I know is that Longo has made his presence known now over the last few months. I don't know what that signifies, but I know enough to know when someone's trying to make a move. I don't trust the people that he deals with. That's basically
saying that the seamstress, was that something to do with framing you?
I don't know, not the seamstress specifically, but I just don't want any information made about us that might be connected to it. There's been other things, merchants who've had their stalls broken into, and then a token or a cloak of one of my people, if you please, left there. Several guards who stopped by took one of mine. I had to break them out of prison, and that wasn't easy either, because they were going to say too much about us. Well, when one of Longo's got caught, at least so I hear, they didn't bother to break him out of prison. They just killed him. Poisoned him. The dead men tell no tales, as they say. I don't do that to my people, but Longo does it to his. The thing that's strangest about him is that with that kind of reputation, with the trouble that follows him, most people in Brokenstone would stay away from that. But people are flocking to him as if, I don't know what he's promising him or what he's got, but they're flocking to him, more of them every day. More of his people on the streets all the time.
Have you ever thought about finding out?
Yes. And I've sent people to try to gather information. But also, I need resources to launch investigations. And I got precious few resources to keep these people going. Some of the lads are starting to grumble. They say that I've lost my edge. And she kind of grits her teeth and she says, the only edge that I've lost is the one on my dagger, because it hasn't been plunged into someone in least recent enough. But that'll happen again if I want it to. In the meantime, though, well, I need to hold on to loyalty. And in this business, that means results.
No, it seems to me that Longo might have some knowledge about who's in your organization and who isn't. But what if someone recently joined, was to be sent to find out more about him.
And she folds her arms and she says, "Are you asking me to be sent to gather information on Longo for me when I haven't even said you're one of us yet?"
I'm presenting you an offer to get you more information for the right fee, on my end, of course.
And she tilts her head. "And the fee?"
Well, the aforementioned protection, a place in your group, permanent like, and a bit of money. Whatever you think's fair.
2 bags of flour.
I can only pay in baking
Endless
goods.
supply of blueberries.
And she sort of says, And at this point, you notice that the guy, your friend, has come up behind her and has heard the last bit of this, and he says, "Are you crazy, Brindle? You're going to bring this halfling into the midst and send him off where he can tell everything to Longo if he wants?" And Brindle sort of looks at him and she says, "No, I'm not crazy. If he's working for Longo and we send him back to get more information about Longo, what have we lost? And if he's not working for Longo and we send him off to get information and he gets captured, who cares?" And he says, "Well, what if he brings the guard down on us?" And she says, "Aye. I need something from you, Bolo, that I can believe in. Something more than a vow. Something more than a promise. What kind of token do I have that I can trust where you go and what you do?"
Well, I can leave you this, my favorite item. I hand over my iron pan.
And
to cook everything in.
she holds the iron pan and she kind of looks at both sides. And next to her, the guy gives a and like just turns away. And she's sort of looking at this pan, and then she says, "I think you actually do think this is your most valuable item, don't you?"
I do.
Make a persuasion check for me, Bolo. I'm going to ask you to do it at advantage. The cooking spot.
Oh my god.
Okay.
You know what I love about this? I'm sorry, before you say anything else, it's like you're trying to work a magic, and the magic that you're doing is cast iron pan.
Oh, man.
I've got a thing I've got to go do.
Wow, yeah.
Very
I'm
proud
just
of
going
yourself,
to... had that one cooking for a while. Hey! All right, that was good. That was impressive. I will not pan that joke. So she...
At least it's well seasoned.
Yeah. Outstanding. Spicy, that joke. Spicy. So she kind of looks down at the pan and she looks at you and she kind of... "You know what, Bolo? I think I'm going to believe you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you out to gather information about Longo, and I'll do you one better. I think I even know where you can find his hideout. So here's how this works. I'm going to send you to Longo's place, if it's true. You're going to go in there on your own, and you're going to see what you can find out. If you get in trouble, you're on your own, halfling that wants to find information and get a job. But if you get in and out, you find the info you need, and you bring it to me that's useful, then I'll allow you to be one of us. I'll give you back your pan." And she kind of looks at the still annoyed, cursing guy behind her who's like just grumbling curses to himself on the other side of the room. She says, "And perhaps I'll even let you report back to your friends. So, what do you say, Bolo? Perhaps you'd like to be a provisional member of the Broken Stone Irregulars. And that's where we'll bring the session to a close.
Spit on my hand. Yeah.
And she shakes it, and that's where we're going to bring the session to a close, which was delightful, enjoyable. It was delightful, although I am, again, I am sorry that the split means that there are times where not everyone is being focused on, but everyone's individual things are so cool that I can't, this is you guys wanted to go in this direction, and I like it, so we're doing it, and I have no doubt everyone will be reunited in the future, again, with each other as characters here in the city. But that was fun, though. It was a lot of fun to watch. So, yes, I loved it too, Trish. I will start, as per usual, at the bottom of the column, and then I'll work my way up. First of all, starting with Amal. There was, again, I loved Inga and the River's own investigation and the sort of the wholesomeness of this poor woman. We will find this needle, and we will kill the people who took it because this woman, and blah, 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 blah. That was a lot of fun to watch the RP there, and we will be beginning with a chase from you, actually. So we will see this chase taking place. How'd you feel about today? Where will the lovely folks see next?
Oh, kitty cat! I felt kitty.
Yeah.
You felt kitty cat about it. All right. Well,
no,
that's.
I thought that was delightful. I mean, as much as I love when the group is together, I also love getting to see everybody kind of shine in their respective scene and stuff. So I did not feel the I felt extremely entertained throughout personally. I super loved this. Kelda, I'm actually having a lot of just to bring this back to teaching. I've been teaching this book, Blood in the Mist by Hope Merlees, in this fantasy myth and language course. And one of the things on the reread of this that has really struck me, when I first read this, I was like 17, 18. Now I am twice that age, and the thing that's really striking me about it is how much this is a book about aging and about like looking back on your life and stuff like that. So I've been full of these like feelings about time and lineage and stuff like that. So that was like poised to be a giant bruise that like Kelda just sort of sucker punched me in. So it was very, very moving. I also just love everything to do with Bolo is like just sending my soul from my body. I just can't get over the same dynamic that all of us in the party had when he arrived. Like, what is your deal though? Except from like the opposite side of someone who's like
You're a curious
really?
one.
Did I just feel like the pan was like the apex of this whole thing? It's like, here, my most precious object.
And the stand-in for that is the guy who's just like, "Are you kidding me?" With like this is just like that guy.
I just love it so much. I extremely love Brindle. In fact, I think the only thing about this whole deal that is making me sad about the party split is that I like have to experience Brindle at one remove. Meanwhile, also deeply suspicious of Haken. Feeling like, oh, is this our baddie? Is this our inside job baddie guy? So all of my narrative impulses are firing. But one tiny logistical question that I had was, inspiration-wise, do we like reset for next time?
Yes, we do reset for next time. So yeah, unfortunately the Tani thing, but don't worry because they will have Pan amazing. We will have other opportunities for those inspirations to be used at other times, but yes, unfortunately that one will not work. I mean, frankly, it almost worked out the same way in that he got the 24.
He got the 24.
So yeah.
Yeah, the only other thing that I wonder about, that I find that I wish I could be wondering in character and stuff, but Tony will get there anyway, is whether or not we still have, I can't remember whether that arrow that killed the orc was poisoned or not.
No. Did not appear to be poisoned.
Okay, cool. I was wondering.
Yeah, it was an unusual arrow because it wasn't all orcish, but it wasn't poison for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, other than that, just absolutely delightful. Super love this. It filled with feelings to carry me forward to next time. Where people can find me, I'm actually doing a whole bunch of Zoom stuff soon. This coming weekend, there's going to be Word on the Street, which is usually a festival in Toronto, is happening on the internet, and I'm going to be interviewing a poet whose name is escaping my brain because I'm too hungry. But anyways, there's going to be, so I'm going to be doing something of that on Sunday, and there's just going to be, I don't know, a fair amount of on-screeniness, but not in this channel until our next session. But in the meantime, if people want to follow me on Substack, subscribe to my newsletter at amal.substack.com. I'm on a blessed Twitter hiatus for the next month, so it's great. I keep hearing about horrible controversies and whatever that other people are going through, and I am blissfully unaware, so I cannot recommend enough this strategy. But yeah, so you can find me at amal.substack.com or at my website, amal.com, and that's basically it.
Awesome. Thanks, Amal, as always. Great pleasure. Also a great pleasure to have Terry with us, who got a chance to do a little bit of rooftop surveillance and, wandering up and around
failed at it.
roofs. Yeah, well, once you got a little bit. I mean, mostly I just had this image of like, stealth dwarf, trying to get on the roof quietly. And like, so I was amused by that. But then also, the feelings that you had about, both of you had this, I think, but you were one of the first, I think, to bring it up, was this idea about the tea and about, I think it was the river first brought up this idea about there's no way she would have slept through this. And then it was, I think, Ingo, who's just kind of like, can I see this tea? Can we see this thing? Can we see this tea? So it was interesting to see the both of you working through this. And I am really looking forward to what you're going to do on the chase that's going to be coming up soon. So how did you feel about today, Terry? Where will the lovely folks see you next?
Oh, this was fun, of course. It's always fun. God damn it. But yeah, like you already mentioned, like when you split up the party, then the action is only on one or two characters at a time. So, but yeah, that's our fault. We decided to split up. So yeah, just happens sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but no, all good. Where will people see me next? Here at some point, probably. Aside from that, people can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at TariToons. And yeah.
And
that's me.
That's you. All right. Yes, you'll see Terry back with us next month. We hope to be able to get an illustration stream in at some point when when everything converges. So hopefully.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We'll
Good thing that you mentioned that, because I am gonna try and see if I can set up put together a setup for streaming traditional art.
Which would be awesome.
Digital art, which would first of all be so much less taxing on my arm because of like the position that I draw in and everything. I
Right.
don't know. There's something weird about like the way my tablet picks up and stuff. But yeah, and second of all, I have the feeling I might be able to be a lot faster that way. So that's nice.
That's great. I look forward to seeing that. It'd be fun to actually see it happen on stream too. So thank you, Terry. Always a pleasure. Also, always a pleasure to have Brad with us, who got to bookend this. Actually, we got the end of the situation with Bolo and the Broken Stone Irregulars, and then the beginning of it, and then the end of it, where Bolo is kind of doing this deep dive, double, triple agent business, into the Broken Stone Irregulars also. So it was a lot of fun to watch that, and I'm enjoying the Brindle Bolo, like Brindle being like, really, like the pan thing was really funny. How'd you feel about today? Where would the lovely folks see you next?
Yeah, it's kind of fun seeing Bolo's got this like innocent streak to him.
Yep.
And yet he's in search of adventure and treasure. So there's these thiefy aspects, but now he's for the first time not coming into danger, but into like a seedier element, of this town, especially, which is the first time he would have come across this type of thing. And so he's scared, but he's trying not to be, and and that sort of thing. So it's kind of fun seeing him weave his way through that.
Yeah, to kind of navigate it.
And for where I'll be The links are up. I'm frequent Twitter, most often on social networks. Big news you can find on my website, quillings.com. And then I'll mention for the last time, because it's starting next week, I have a course on litreactor.com that starts on the 29th. So next Tuesday it starts. And it's called From Good to Great. It's meant to take sort of the neo-pro, up a few notches in writing. It's a 4-week course. And you can find it on Lit Reactor. They have it on the calendar, but also you can just search for my name and you'll find it. So you can catch me there if you're interested in some writing instruction. And otherwise, thanks for the session. This was fun.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Thank you, Brad. And yes, you should all check that out because Brad's very good at those kinds of things, and you should check out his work because obviously it worked for him with his career. So, thank you, Brad. Always a pleasure, and also always a pleasure to have Tren with us. Who, while everyone was doing their thing, Tren, I felt like yours is like the serious in that it's like yours is the royal through line. You're dealing with like the queen and like the high up stuff and like all that's happening at the same time. And of course, you're having to navigate Haken. One of the things that's interesting to me also, just quickly about the whole party, is that each of you are having to think of the party as a whole, but as characters are having to individually consider your own, segments of whatever this plot may or may not be. So, I mean, Bolo's got to arrange things with the sort of the Broken Stone Irregulars, obviously, and dealing with that side of things. The River and Inga are dealing more with the direct stuff that they first encountered with Kelda, but obviously that was the precipitating event. And so they've got that to worry about. And then Tani is having to deal with the authorities, who have also got something to say about this. And this is a whole other component, the poisoning of the queen and what does that mean and all that kind of stuff. So, so it was interesting to see that, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with Tani not only trying to heal her, but then trying to be like, okay, now we got to find out who actually did this in the first place. So how'd you feel about today, Tren, and where will you be seen next?
I was really, honestly, I mean, it sounds bad to say this, but I was really kind of glad that I didn't just solve the poison thing right away, because that would have really diminished its severity.
Right.
In the thing, and the idea that, we may have to very quickly take off and go and because what if this dude's not in Dale? What if we have to go somewhere way the hell off to try to find the poison to then make an it's and time is ticking away at the same time. I thought that was very fun. I will echo what everybody else said about Bolo. Tawny has his elements about just Hoppins in general, but I love Bolo. He's just when they were not Brendel, but the other guy was walking around him like, you don't do this very much, do you? And I just started losing it. I was just like, And
preach it.
Yeah, exactly. And then to see later on with Brindle doing exactly the same thing and Amal losing, I'm like, good, I'm not the only one.
I have the confidence of a middle-aged hobbit wandering out the wilderness.
But and then watching again with Inga and the River and Stone doing their thing, and just there were points where just the continuously just having totally given up a downtrodden, behavior of Kelda. I was like, that's what I feel like lately. That's it right there.
Picked up on the ennui, yes.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. That's it.
Feel like someone's taking my needle from me.
You have inherent value, Tren.
Whatever. Anyway,
we love you, Tren.
And then I love you guys too. And then what you were talking about, Arv, about the varying layers of what is player knowledge versus what is character knowledge. Because Tren knowing what the girls have found, and I'm like, okay, that could fit in this way, and I'm like, ooh, no, wait, he doesn't know that. You can't.
What if perhaps there's some deeper plot that, like, how would you know that?
We do know that Longo has ears everywhere, and I think are being a little bit more suspicious in general. Like, I don't think that, because I think that we are totally, obviously, all sharing the Zoom chat and being all on a wavelength and stuff. But we also know that the reason we split up in the first place is to be less of a target for spying and stuff, and to be able to do our own investigation. So I feel like it is totally legit to be suspicious of Lord Haken, regardless of whether or not I am declaring him our baddie in another window, not having interacted with him riverwise.
Well, just very quickly, before Trent finishes up, I just wanted to say that is one thing that this party is dealing with now, that all parties at a certain point start dealing with, is that there is a benefit, there is an advantage to obscurity, and none of you have that now. I mean, you, Bolo probably more than the rest of you, but Tani and Inga and the River are, you're the heroes of Dale. Like, you're well known as to who you are. You're Thane Tani, thank you very much, and you are Thane Inga, thank you very much, etc. And the River is, the counselor, like, who has, speaks for her people. Like, you're known by people, and that's one of the reasons that Brenda was like, I saw it. My people said that you were hanging out with these people, and so even to Bolo. So it's not. It makes things a little bit more challenging, as much as it gives you the benefit of people being like, oh, it's so great to see you, but then also, everyone wants your autograph or the equivalent, and it's not as easy to be incognito, let's say. But
that was one of the two other things that I wanted to mention, is that when you started mentioning, my people have seen you with the thing, and I'm like, no, they wouldn't have, because he caught up with us after we left. And then the way that Brad, the way you handled it with, I took them a letter, from someone. I'm like, okay, hang on. Sit back, let this play out, hang on. And by the time you were done, I was like, I can accept that. Okay,
Yeah.
That's good. And it was all truth. And yet not. And I'm just like, I love this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway. The other thing that I wanted to mention is something that occurred to me that I wanted to mention at the beginning of the thing, but I didn't want to make everybody so incredibly angry. And especially Amal, given that she's been off of, been on her Twitter hiatus. For those of you who have either Twitter accounts or email accounts, which I would presume if you're watching this on Twitch, you probably have one of the two of those. I want you to spend the rest of the day dropping emails and tweets and everything to Netflix and chew them out for canceling the Dark Crystal.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I literally just saw that.
Yeah, they did,
saw it on tour.com. They were announcing it. Didn't it win an Emmy 2 days ago?
Yes.
2020 doesn't stop. Yeah.
Appalling. Absolutely appalling.
Oh, I thought you said I'm calling.
No,
I expected to look up and see with your phone. Going, all right, I'm calling these people right now.
Stop this immediately. Wait, you're that Amal? Oh, we apologize. We will immediately reverse everything.
That's right.
So where will you see me next? Right here on Saturday, where I will be playing a tiny little man who is, I think, still a gas cloud right now. Who's being chased through a couple of firewalls, not like technological firewalls, by a tremendous vampire named Strahd, and is like getting kind of the Three Stooges trying to get up the stairs.
Well, they're trying to get his skull up, as the huge 250-pound dragon skull up some stairs.
You've actually encountered the titular Strahd of
first day.
Strahd?
Okay.
Yeah, Strahd does not hide in the shadows. Strahd is very much about his own ego and, hello, I am going to be the one who introduces you to this land because I'm so self-absorbed. If you wanted the poster child for toxic masculinity in these times, Amal, I would encourage you to look at Strahd, who literally represents the example of the constantly victim-blamed, everyone hates me, it's everyone's fault but mine, Strahd. He is, yeah. I think it's well done to show that, but it's one of those things where you're like, and if you want to see the end of him, chat, you may see the end of him on October 31st, Halloween, where they may have a chance to defeat Strahd shortly before the election, where we'll try to defeat our own Strahd. So it'll be lovely. And by the way, since we brought this up, I just put in chat here, www.vote.org, because it is National Voter Registration Day in the United States. So if you haven't already done so, go do this now. I have made clear to everyone how critically important this is, especially in the light of the terrible news about Justice Ginsburg. There has never been a more important moment than this to make sure that you're ready to vote. Also, as I've made clear, everyone is responsible for their own areas. Terry is off the hook here. Yeah, Terry's off the hook because Terry just has to worry about Germany, and Amal just has to worry about Amal's to worry about Canada. But Brad has got to bring home Wisconsin, and I got to be honest with you, Brad. I've got New York covered, okay? Trent has got California covered. So we're going to bring home our states. You just need to bring home Wisconsin. So if you could just make sure that happens, That's
Hobbits
all.
for Biden.
You know,
Yeah.
Speaking of
Fine.
voting, because we had elections 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. And my oldest brother actually made it on the town council, so that's nice.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yes.
Also, that is such a cool. That's really awesome, Terry. Also, that is an amazing new Twitch emote. Holy cow! Look at that in chat. All in to vote is an actual. That's amazing. What a great emote. Sweet. So yes, that's really cool.
Oh wow, that's great.
All in to vote. Hell yeah. Let's see more of it. So anyway, seriously, I mean, all jokes aside, this is extremely important, folks. We are in a dangerous moment in history. We need to vote. So you need to be registered and have a plan. Not just registered vote, but how you're going to do it.
Morning.
So make it happen. But
I double checked to make sure that I was still
So did I.
on the thing.
yeah, so did I.
I was like,
So.
I'll check it today.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
So-
only sort of very, very tangentially related to the importance of voting and stuff, but because I mean, I don't know, man. If you're not going to give people the means of voting in advance, I mean, we have advanced voting here. I don't know, but
There are
the
a lot
fact-
of there's a lot of early voting in the states too. It just depends on
Yeah.
the state.
But yeah, only tangentially related to voting. But I think connected to all of this stuff is just one of the things about this game that I was going to say this jokingly, but I'm going to say it seriously now. Is that the fact that each of us is investigating a different facet and layer of not just the problem but the society is genuinely makes me think of The Wire.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
you know, always sort of perpetually astonished that, like, you know, there it's like there's generations of people who haven't seen it because of the moment when it was on and whatever. But if you're not familiar with The Wire, it is a television show that took 5 seasons to examine different strata of Baltimore and why and how the drug problem there feeds into the administration of the city, like the mayor's office, the newspapers, the shipping yard.
Education.
Sorry?
Education system.
And the education system, exactly. Like just how each of these things is affected by and contributes to the problem of drug crime and stuff in the city. And it's just something like the fact that nothing exists in a box, you know, separately from other things. Like, if it's hard for you to vote, that is a problem that needs to be addressed by a change in government, because it should be easy to vote. And so, like, it's infuriating to me that every time, I don't know, anytime someone says, like, just go vote, the fact that can be replied to with, but I can't because I can't get the time off of work, or I can't because there is one polling station in my entire city, or whatever. That is not the fault of the people who have to confront that, but it is like it makes it that much more important to somehow be able to confront it, because it should be so much easier than that.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I have to let you guys go, but just totally agree. But I agree entirely. And what I would say about that, just very quickly, is the last dying gasps of the autocrats comes in the form of trying to get people to exercise the vote to get them out of office. And the thing that I always say to the people who get cynical about it, for example, and say, well, the fix is in, is that if the fix is in, they wouldn't be working their asses off to keep you from voting. If the vote didn't matter, they wouldn't care. The vote obviously matters, and they are deathly afraid of it, and we need to make them afraid of it, because, again, government must be afraid of its people. People should not be afraid of its government. It is critically important that we vote them out of office and return sanity. What we do in this, as I've said all along, in these games that we do here, is we try to demonstrate what small little found families and communities can do together. So if you watch this stuff and thought to yourself, oh, it was really sweet that Inga and the River, felt this feeling about, this poor old woman who had lost her needle and they want to help her. That's a good human feeling. If you felt like, if you laughed at what Bolo was doing, but you were also like, he's trying to find out what he can to sort of solve this problem for the other end, and he's doing it bravely, despite the fact that he doesn't know what darkness and shadows he's going into, but he's going to do it anyway. And if you liked what you saw from Tani about Tani trying to heal people, even in the face of resistance and implacable darkness, this is intended to be inspiration in other ways also. Yes, it's not elves, dwarves, and hobbits. It's real people doing real things, but it makes it just as important to be inspired by what you see to engage it in your own lives. So I agree entirely, And you're all wonderful people, and I love you all. And it's really important that we listen to those messages. So please, everybody, vote with that amazing command that Rudinel made, which is amazing, called Vote Now, which is really super awesome. So thank you, Rudinel. Other than that, you will see Tren here on Curse of Strahd on Saturday, and you will see Brad and Terry and Amal back here for Adventures of Middle-earth. And I want to thank the amazing players today. Chat, can we get some love for our amazing players? Thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed today, and we will see you folks next month and in various other places.
Goodbye.
Bye for
Toodaloo.
now.
Bye.
Okay. And that was really awesome. I really enjoyed that, and I liked that conversation at the end. It makes me feel hopeful, and that's always a good thing to feel hopeful in this way. So very quickly, folks, because I got to go get ready for stuff. As per usual, I'm going to be zipping along here to kind of get ready. So what I would like all of you folks to do, please, is just quickly. Yay, Gigafrost. That's awesome. I'm so glad, Gigafrost. If you don't mind my asking, Giga, where are you? Do you mind mentioning like what state? I'm just curious because that's always interesting to me to see how these things work, because I'd like to know about this stuff is actually happening. But thank you for doing that, Gigafrost. It's really important. It really, really is important. And that's another way you can help, by the way. If you are in America and you know that you'll be able to vote, but you know relatives that may not be capable of voting, and you can help them, either by setting up an absentee ballot or by being willing to drive them to the polls or, obviously safely, etc. If you can do any of those things, that's also helpful. Not just your vote, but if you can help other people vote too. So just think about that as another way that you can help also. And yeah, and that'll be important too, Rudinel, I think, for sure. So North Carolina, hey, listen, good, Gigafrost, because boy, do we need vote. Yeah, so I'm glad that you're doing that. That's awesome. Okay, so last vote here. Get that vote in on that next game link that I just put in there, because I'm going to close this down in about 1 minute, basically, because I got to get out of here. Spirit Fair is 8 votes. Ghostbusters Remastered 3 votes. Batman Telltale Series is 1 vote. Get your vote in now for one of these, and I'm going to be playing that next week, next Tuesday. Here we go. I'm going to do this. So here we go. Last chance to get in your votes. Going once, going twice, and going 3 times. Okay, so Spiritfarer it is. So that is the Patreon Fueled Chat Chosen Game of the Month. I will play Spiritfarer next week. I'm excited to try it. Everyone's telling me how great it is, so I am looking forward to actually giving that a shot. But right now, what I got to do is go get ready for another amazing D&D session with my lovely friends over at GOG. D&D with GOG, playing Storm King's Thunder is what we're looking at. Yeah, I'm going to be going over to do that. It's going to be great. I'm excited, and yeah. It's a good game. Yeah. I'm glad you like it, Jactress. Also, I saw you, and hi, Jactress, if I didn't say so hi. That's awesome, Arudino, actually. I mean, it sucks that she has to do that, but it's good that that's happening. So, all right, I'm heading on out. I got to get over there to do this stuff. You know how to do all the things. Please support the channel by following the channel. Please subscribe to the channel, as a few of you did today. Remember, it's September, so if you haven't subbed before, you actually get a little bit of a cheaper cost up front. Don't forget, annual subs or more than 1 month subs can actually save you a little bit of money up front as well. So we've got that going on. We have the Discord with !ARV cord, Twitter with !ARV tweets, website with Spiritfarer you're talking about. I was so confused, actors. Yeah, Spiritfarer. Yeah, I've heard really good things. If you say that's good too, that's good to hear. I've heard lots of good things about it. !ARV cord for the Discord, and !, actually the website for that is arvanellarun.com. On the financial side, the shop is !ARV shop. You can get Adventures of Middle-earth merchandise and D&D with INB, currently playing Curse of Strahd merchandise, and soon to be merchandise from Esper Genesis as well. !ARV Treon is right there. That's the Patreon, which is the financial backbone of this channel. Really helps if you're able to support there. Cool stuff for you that you can't get any other way, and cool stuff as well for the channel as a whole. So that really helps. So please consider doing that. And then we have !ARV Treon for that. And then we've got the sub button, which will allow you to sub, as several of you have done today. I think we're up to like 66 or 67 subs, somewhere in there. So we're continuing to try to push that onwards and upwards. And again, that makes a big difference to the channel. Cool stuff for you and for the channel, custom sub badges and emotes and inspirations to help with the players and all that kind of good stuff. Lastly, the publishing stuff. !Icarus for my Icarus and Jelinek graphic novels from Athos Arts. Please support us over there, because that is coming out in retail November 10th, I beg your pardon. pardon, of this year. Exclamation Point Library is Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library from Alligator Alley Entertainment. Print version of that coming very soon. And Exclamation Point Greyshade KS for more details about my Greyshade Kickstarter, which are coming out February of 2021. Also, the most important thing here too, Exclamation Point BLM, Black Lives Matter, and it's partially because Black Lives Matter that the voting is so important also. So Exclamation Point BLM and Exclamation Point Vote Now, both things to keep in mind as we go forward, not just to raise black voices, but to also vote politicians who will also put Black Lives Mattering as one of their major functions, instead of always thinking about it as an afterthought. Black Lives do matter. That's why it's so important that we support it there. I'm heading over to GOG. I'm going to be over there in about 10 minutes for D&D with GOG, Storm King's Thunder. And then again, I'll be back on this channel tomorrow evening with the Shadow Crew, featuring, of course, Shadow Mage as your DM, and with Trishy Mats and Echo Alpha X5 and Rock God and Hoodie as your players for Dragon of Icespire Peak. Then later on this week, Friday, we have Esper Genesis, Friday night, and then Saturday, we have again the aforementioned D&D with Infinity Beyond, Curse of Strahd. So big week of role-playing ahead. That's it for me for now. Thank you to my wonderful mods, Arudnell, Dragonspear, Arudnell and Dragonspear. Wonderful work today, folks. Also wonderful work from Coven Guy when he was here earlier. Thank you to my subscribers, Arudnell, Dragonspear, Nonstop, Arinth, Trendane, and Trishimats. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters there as well. Thank you to Admiral KK, Commander Root, Crazy Cynical, Day _, Durable, Leakag, First Killer, Get Affiliated Now, which is clearly not a bot, Gigafrost, Gorgar, Jagtress, Let's Do This Streamer, also not a bot, Lurks, also not a bot, Marinda, Mrs. Dunsel, Knight Adrian, Remistino, Thicker, TNS Mephiston, U Christensen, Uncle Elias, and Wenchkin. Thanks, everyone. Much love. I will see you folks in about 10 minutes, hopefully over at GOG.com. But until then, everyone, be good to each other and make a plan to vote. And I'll see you lovely people soon for you. Bye for now.